All right. Hello, everybody. Double salute to you. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris, and this is a show talking about comic books. This is talking about all the biggest comic book news of the past week, taking a look at some of the biggest comics and comic-related publications that have come out in the past week. It's going to be a great show. News, reviews, no interviews tonight. That's okay. We've got tons of show. We've got our live audience who tend to add the best jokes. Mine? Well, we'll see, because we are going to start with a monologue. All right. So let me talk to you about a little bit of news right up top, and then we'll break it down and get a little more serious. So sales data, I don't know if you saw this, but sales data shows that not only did DC Comics dominate the top 10 most ordered comics, but the only appearance of Spider-Man on the list came from DC's crossover, Spider-Man meeting Superman. Yeah. That might explain why Marvel has announced their new title, Crisis on Infinite Unsold Comics. There we go. I'll settle for a polite you want belly laugh, you settle for a satisfied smirk. What else have we got? You may have noticed this. There is a trend in comics, in new comics, selling out of their first print right away, happening a lot. Well, Image Comics seems to have noticed their solicitations to comic book stores no longer bother to give a little description and a title. Instead, new comics are just announced as the upcoming second printing comes next month. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. All right. And this is the last one I got. Thank you for bearing with me. A little serious. You may have seen in the thumbnail that this has happened. I don't know if you saw it on the news, but a cargo ship carrying Fantagraphics comics was actually hit by a missile from Iran. That's actually true. That part's true. Yeah, the good news is that the ship was able to make it safely to port. The bad news is that the prices for the missile-damaged variant covers have gone through the roof over at Whatnot. Okay, you dealt with it. I wanted to do it. I did it. I allow myself that pleasure. With all that said, we actually have some really interesting news, including breaking news. That also counts as a joke, by the way. You'll get it in a little while, but there is breaking news. So without any further ado, let's get into the news of the week.
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi guys, this is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
All right, we have a bunch of interesting news. Let me add this to the stage. That implies seriousness, that thumbnail. See? I'm taking it seriously. So let's just get right into stuff. This is the breaking news. Whatnot. I think everybody here probably has at least heard of, if not used, Whatnot. It's an online buying and selling platform. In some ways, that's like, eBay or Yahoo Auctions, but the difference is that it's a live show. That's the biggest difference. Well, anyway, they sell lots of comics, and that's why it's relevant right now. But they were served, this news just broke today, they were served with 15 arbitration complaints. That's a specific type of a lawsuit, with allegations that it is running itself as an online casino, but without regulations. That's in an article on Sports Illustrated today. So obviously a pretty reputable site. But Sports Illustrated has gotten into having a section where they talk about collectibles, cards. And that's why this is news there. Paul Lesko is the attorney for the plaintiff. He does specialize in collectible lawsuits. He's talked before about like CGC scandals and stuff like that. Anyway, he released a statement that he's filed these 15 complaints on behalf of his clients, that there are also more to come. And it alleges that Whatnot specifically has no regulations on how they handle something called breaking. And I'm going to talk to you about what breaking is, because I'll be honest, I didn't really know much about breaking before today. So breaking allows the viewers to bid on slots to win certain things. For instance, as an example, let's say we were opening a pack of baseball cards. You could, if you're one of the accepted bidders, you might say, I'm giving $20 and any cards that are for the Boston Red Sox, I'm going to get those cards. And you might get none, or you might get like some sort of a rare special card, okay? Because you've claimed that specific slot. So, anyway, it's kind of gambling. It kind of is, in my opinion. Anyway, Lesko's complaints allege that Whatnot is operating like an unlicensed casino. They don't have warnings. They don't have information on addiction to gambling resources. These are things that actual gambling casinos and online casinos have to have. There are no spending limits. I mean, technically there are, but you can turn it off in the settings. So functionally there isn't. There are self-exclusion lists. So yeah, like, for instance, suppose an old rare pack of cards is worth $100, but you sell 20 slots at $25 each. You've already got more than like the pack itself would go for. And maybe one or two of those people do get a card that's worth more than what they bid, but maybe they don't. So anyway, allegations include accusations that Whatnot allows something called shill bidding, where friends or the people themselves are putting in what's technically a fake bid just meant to drive up the overall bids. Again, these are allegations. This hasn't been proven. These are allegations. There are allegations that there's inside knowledge that, like, for instance, somebody might package their own blind bag of something or other, and then they might let some of their premium bidders that tend to bid a lot go like, hey, you might want to look for, the brown box that I'll pull out, not the black or the blue box, things like that. Okay. So that they've got an increased likelihood to win something good, and that there's no oversight, all of this. So this is like really serious allegations, and people have been talking about Whatnot basically allowing a form of gambling for a long time. Fans have definitely talked about that. Will anything come from this? Honestly, maybe I'm too skeptical. I sort of feel cynical in that there might be a few new rules, a small settlement. I don't think that there will be a massive change. I think breaking will definitely be a thing that will be allowed to continue because it's just so popular. Whatnot released a statement in response to this just a little while before I did my show. I don't have the full quote, but read the article on Sports Illustrated if you want to read their full response. But they basically reject it. They say, no, we do not allow gambling. We do have safeguards. And they said that breaking is a long-standing practice at, comic book stores and hobby shops, comic conventions, and that they're just doing something that has been done before. I don't know. I'm not an expert on breaking, but I think that there's a lot of money behind it from what I've been reading. So definitely a big story that I'm going to have to digest. This happened this afternoon. This went up. So I haven't had a lot of time to think it through and really familiarize myself 100% with the history of breaking. I've heard some of my friends and coworkers that are younger than me talk about it for things like Pokemon cards, but I didn't really ever pay attention because it's just not my area of nerddom, This is true. Christopher here is correct. I am an expert on break dancing, as in I've broken 53 of my bones trying to break dance just once. Yeah, apparently it is a thing. I did a little bit of research, and yeah, breaking has been going on for a long time, basically allowing people to, on its simplest level, it doesn't even have to include the bidding. It can just be opening a pack of something live, which these days does include blind bags for comics. So, and Whatnot sells a lot of comics. The allegations are primarily for cards, but there definitely are comic book things involved, and it's a platform for selling comics. So if things change, yeah, that's going to be something that affects the industry and affects, if not us directly, certainly people that we know. So yeah. I'm here to teach people. I'm here to teach people. That just sounded like I was slipping into a really bad impression. But anyway. Well, thank you, Jamilin. That's so kind of you to acknowledge that. Yes, I am an expert on breaking wind. It's something that I do well. It's something I'm really, really, really proud of. All right. That is the allegation, that it is not just gambling, but that it is targeting people that aren't really even aware of the risks of gambling, and that it can be an addiction. If you go in knowing that it's an addiction and knowing that there are resources, obviously that's a little bit more of a different story, because you're making an informed decision on whether you consider it, entertainment. Thanks. Oh, that's so nice. My wife is there to attest that I know about breaking wind. That's great. There is a super popular manga over in Japan. The last time I was over there, I saw signs everywhere, and they love using English because they think it's classy, which is ironic because this manga is called Windbreaker. And the 13-year-old in me kept going like every time I saw something like that. Windbreaker. All right, moving forward. I've got a few pieces in some ways related to DC. First of all, Swamp Thing artist Stephen Bissette, one of the best, right? Guy helped co-create Constantine, drew some beautiful, beautiful issues of Saga of Swamp Thing with Alan Moore writing. Would alternate with John Totalben, a few by Rick Veitch, who I interviewed recently. Really, really cool guy. Well, he was named the newest cartoonist laureate for Vermont. Vermont is the only state I've found that has this position, but they do have this position. You've probably heard of things like a poet laureate that's appointed. Well, Vermont actually recognizes cartoonists, and I think that that's just awesome for the field, for the medium. I think it's awesome for Stephen to get that honor. His appointment is going to begin April 9th, very soon. And that's a 3-year term that they serve for. I asked Rick Veitch about it in my interview. And essentially, it's not like you have obligations per se, but you make yourself available to maybe talk to schools and things like that, or maybe do things at libraries, bookstores, just sort of like you're responsible for getting the word out and helping educate people in any way you can. So good for Vermont. Good for Vermont. Tilly Walden is the current laureate, obviously super successful cartoonist. Past honorees, we've got James Kolchaka, love his book Elf. Alison Bechdel, what's her incredible book that I loved? It was turned into a Broadway play, Home. All of a sudden I'm blanking on the full title of Alison Bechdel's great autobiography graphic novel. Hold on, I want to acknowledge this. This Super Trooper is Baja blasting all troopers. Well, your Rear Admiral salutes you, Super Comic Trooper. Thank you. Fun Home. Thank you, everybody. Yes, Fun Home is in Funeral Home because she grew up in a funeral home. Fantastic book, by the way. Really, really strong recommend. Rick Veitch, obviously, has been one of the honorees, and the late Ed Koren. So pretty amazing list of talent that they've got there in Vermont. Just doing, always good to see you, Andy. And Andy knows, just doing laureate stuff. Just doing general laureate stuff, sipping wine, talking comics. What else? Just did Bissette's biography of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, Tyrant. Incredible indie comic that he self-published. Technically hasn't really ever been completed. Well, this month It is launching on Kickstarter. Jim Rugg is designing the book. I know a bunch of you guys know Jim. Lighthouse Press putting it together. So it's going to finish the story and put it in basically an artist edition. Really, really looks amazing. So a deluxe version coming to Kickstarter. Strong recommend for that. Wouldn't you be Supreme Commander Comic Trooper? I would be. Thank you for the super chat. But Rear Admiral is legally a lot funnier. So I'm Rear Admiral of the Comic Troopers. Well, you know, it's funny. Stephen was on my friend Jim Mafood's show, Ink Pulp, and I live, and I asked, you know, if he was aware of Gone, which, if anybody here doesn't know, is also a silent story following a dinosaur that's a manga comic. It's a little more humorous, but it's still like a real look at a dinosaur's life. And Bissette said he was aware of it and that he admires it. So, yeah, kind of cool. I did hear about that Mike Manhattan. I will talk about that later. And you reminded me, I'll throw up a banner so that folks know what's coming up. We're still early in the show. So thank goodness I got reminded of that. But if you're just joining, you can know what you've either missed or what's coming up. Chrissy is my boss, but I'm Chrissy's boss, so it works back and forth. Thank you for the support, Steve. Sincerely appreciate that. Yep, it'll be complete. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty darned cool. Hey, Brunson, Raymond Brunson here did the cover, folks, for a book that came out this week. I just saw that. IDW's Godzilla versus Portland. Brunson did one of the covers. Brunson, congratulations. I think that was, I mean, if I ever did any sort of variant cover for like a store or it doesn't matter how big or small it is, but for Godzilla, I'd be doing backflips for life. For life. Oh, Dave says that, and I think Dave did talk to Steven. So it's not getting a new issue? I'm sorry that I guess Dave would know better than me. For some reason, I really thought this was adding more. Well, anyway, it still sounds awesome, and I'm going to support it. But I guess Dave would know better than me. So, okay. All right. Well, moving on. I thought this was kind of cool as far as reprints go. The first prints of all sorts of books continue to sell out. We've seen a lot of it with Image and some other like indie publishers. I'll say Vault's Nectar is one. Instantly sold out, right? But DC is getting that response as well. They just released one of their history anthologies, New History of the DC Universe, the Dakota Incident, and that specifically is an updated origin for the Milestone characters that they've integrated into DC. Static, everybody knows Static, but a lot of people will still know Icon and Rocket, maybe Hardware, the Blood Syndicate. These were all really cool comics, all created by Black creators in the 90s. DC published it, but Milestone was its own creator-owned thing. But since then, they've sold it and integrated it into DC. Anyway, DC made an anthology, just talking about them, put it out for Black History Month. Good timing. Sold out. So DC announced that they're rushing in a new printing of this. And the second print is going to include a new main cover by Dan Mora of Static. And I thought it was a pretty nice looking cover. So it just seemed like a fun thing to share. Yeah, Dakota is sold out everywhere. I've been up front. I was buying all the Milestone books when they came out. That was just who I was in the 90s. And I would say I liked half of them, and the other half I was like kind of indifferent about. But I really loved Static, and I really, really loved Icon. I thought Icon and Rocket, especially the issues that were drawn by MD Bright, I just have always liked that artist. I really liked that series. I thought that was a really cool book. And Hardware was pretty cool too. But anyway. Yeah, I think it does show that Milestone has a larger audience than maybe DC suspected. And considering some of the stuff that's going on, DC's doing very well with sales, right? A lot of hit books, a lot of creative freedom for their creators. But one of the big criticisms is there's not many of their Black characters that have an ongoing title. Like, where's Vixen? Where's Cyborg? Where's Static, right? Where are these big characters? And I think that this does show that there's definitely interest with the right creative team. Writers of the anthology include Joseph P. Illidge. We've got Stephanie Williams, Morgan Hampton, Nicholas Draper-Ivey. We've also got artwork by Carlo Pagulian. I'm probably mispronouncing that. I'm sorry. Valentine DeLandro, Edwin Galman, bunch of others. Just thought I'd put that out there. So you might want to pick up the second print. Again, sort of an anthology. And one of the things it does to update it for being into the DC universe is Lex Luthor becomes sort of a key villain representing some government control over this fictional city of Dakota, where an event happens that creates a bunch of superheroes. It's really cool. I agree that it was melodramatic, but I would also argue that superhero comics by their nature are frequently melodramatic. And I thought that it was something different, that it was like a viewpoint we didn't usually get to see in a lot of superhero comics. So I think it was actually, I thought that was very interesting, seeing like Rocket, this like pregnant young teen, become a superhero. And she was the hero of the book, because Icon is so jaded and indifferent. He's basically Black Superman, if you folks don't know. And he's basically become, because he's just so old, he's wealthy and stuff like that. He's secured his own life, but he's very conservative, and he's not in touch with the Black community, even though because he's an alien technically, but he certainly looks and was raised by Black people. It was really cool. Selling out despite being leaked the week before. That's a great addition. It did go online a week before, apparently. Shows that Milestone is in demand, and hopefully more ongoing titles. Also, that Dan Mora static. Yeah. When Dan Mora is like really invested, I just think he's incredibly dynamic. Really, really good artist. I really like him. Another DC thing. This is more for me because I like Lego. But today, WB Games released a new trailer for this upcoming Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight video game. And it reveals they've actually moved the release date up a week. It was originally coming out the 29th. Now it comes out the 22nd. And if you download or buy the Deluxe edition, you, I guess, get it 72 hours early. So you could get it as early as the 19th. I love the Lego games. I don't know. They're my zen. Like, for a game where I can pick it up, have fun solving just like some puzzles, like some kind of light battle, but I can pick it up and put it down, and I can keep coming back to it to try to get 100%, to unlock all the hidden stuff. I just really find that relaxing, and I need that sometimes. The open world game is going to adapt Batman stories from the comics, from TV, from movies, and from other video games, like both Lego Batman games as well as things like the Arkham Knight games. Pretty cool. They're pulling from lots of different sources. One big change, if you don't know, and if you've played any Lego games before, instead of having like hundreds of different characters to unlock, you'll still unlock, villains and supporting characters. You'll unlock lots of different outfits and costumes, but there's only 7 playable characters, and each of them have very different abilities for this. So yeah, you'll play as 7 characters in this: Batman, Robin, Nightwing, Catwoman, Talia al Ghul, Batgirl, and Commissioner Gordon. But they say that allowed them to focus on really expanding the gameplay and the open world environment. I got to play a little of it at New York Comic Con in October. It was fun. It was really cool, from what I saw. There's also a downloadable content pack available day one that lets you play as Harley and Joker. Has like a little separate mission. Anyway, I like those games. Don't know about you guys, but I think TT Games makes some really fun games with the Lego, whatchamacallit, brand. To a degree, yes, but they've always had DLC, and it's not like you have to get that stuff. I'm going to stick with the Lego theme for a minute. I never expected this, but I think it's cool. I just do. You guys know I made an episode about Tintin, hopefully. I think Tintin is a very influential and important comic. But yeah, the Lego Ideas series announced a set based on the bande dessinée Tintin, the Belgian comic by Hergé. Look at that. It's going to release April 4th. Has over 1,200 pieces. It's going to retail for, in my opinion, a little bit of a high price because you sort of, I don't know, that math doesn't quite work, but licensed sets do cost more. So whatever. It's basically $160 for almost 1,300 pieces. A little high, not excruciating, but a little high. Chuck has a great point. He knows video games as well as any of my friends because he worked in them. You guys have probably played a bunch of his games before. The DLC is always super cheap after a few months. Exactly. It does go down. So if you don't need it right away, and if you do, then you want it. So yeah, that's a good argument. Thank you, Chuck. I love those things. Never got into Tintin. Fair. I think it's really cool adventure comics. Really, really fun. The set features the red and white rocket that was in two big bande dessinée collections, Destination Moon and Explorers on the Moon. Yeah, really, really cool. The original submission for this, if you don't know Ideas, it's where people can create their own Lego sets, submit them, and if they get 10,000 votes by the community, Lego then reviews it to see if it's something they will create. If they do create it, the creator gets paid a it's something small like 1%, but they get like a royalty. They get a royalty. So you can make a lot of money if it does get accepted, just to be clear. But the original submission had like a dock along with it. What's the gangway, the end there's a word for that I'm not thinking of when a space shuttle has a launching platform. Not gangway. Anyway, it's something like that. They did away with that, which I'm totally okay with because that's kind of the boring part to build. And they included, sorry, I hit an extra button. They included more minifigs because originally it was just going to be Tintin, but they've added Captain Haddock, Professor Calculus, and the two detectives Thompson and Thompson, as well as Snowy the dog. Gantry, thank you everybody. Gantry was the word on my mind. So, in my opinion, if I was getting something based on a comic, I would actually rather get a handful of minifigs based on those characters than the gantry. The ship is the more fun part to build. As far as I know, Rin Tin Tin never teamed up with Tintin, which is just a tragedy of epic proportions if you're Canadian, right? It wasn't Rin Tin Tin a dog from Canada? Wasn't Rin Tin also one of the bad guys in The Crow? Or was that also Tintin? It was Rin Tin, right? I don't know. It's a really... Sorry, I meant this. Gotta have a Snowy in there. I think that is super cute. I wish that they had figured out a way to also give him a little bulb, you know, what do you call it? Like the astronaut helmet that they invented for each of these characters. But I understand how that would have been pretty tricky. I love what they've done. Now, to be clear, the interior of this, there's really nothing there. It's all structure to hold it up. But the top opens up and there's a little tiny control room that I think is very well decorated. And I love that this isn't just a cylinder. If you look, they've figured out like some really clever ways to like add just a little bit of roundness here. I think that these landing prongs are some really clever design. It looks to me like a fun build. It was Tintin in The Crow. Thank you for confirming. Okay. All right. Enough humor. Let's do some more news, please. Let's talk about what I have in my thumbnail. This is bonkers. Comics cannot seem to escape world politics, folks, because a cargo ship that was carrying a full print run of 2 new upcoming Fantagraphics books was struck and damaged by an Iranian missile as it went through the Strait of Hormuz. Does everybody here know what the Strait of Hormuz is? Maybe I just shouldn't have assumed that. Let me just quickly pull up a map to make sure that we're all on the same page here. This will take me a second to open a link. But the Strait of Hormuz is, it connects the Persian Gulf to the ocean. And the only way to go through it is this, well, it's a strait. It's a really narrow area. And it is just to the south of Iran. It's one of the most important things that Iran can influence politically. Let me remove this and add something real quick. Share screen. How do I share screen? There it is. Okay. So I'm going to just give a small lesson to people that don't know. So, okay. So India published the comics, okay? India published the comics because printing there is pretty cheap. But it's on a massive cargo ship. They're not going to carry just books. So any cargo ship coming from here basically stops, in the UAE and Kuwait and Qatar and all that, because they all manufacture the oil that the world needs. And the only way to get there is through this little area here called the Strait of Hormuz. Iran does not have the ability to refine oil. So they do have to let cargo go through here, but they can slow it down or deploy mines if they don't like it. If they don't like what's going on, it can affect them. So at some point they have to let up, but it's one of the things that they can do to affect the world. And obviously our president has decided to bomb them. So Iran has responded by putting mines throughout the strait here. All the cargo ships that are going through that are going basically from the east anywhere to the or going further east, but to the west, go through the Strait of Hormuz to get oil. Okay. Back and forth through there. Anyway, sorry. A quick history lesson that I am sure some people did not want to hear about, but some of them, I think it can help visually to just know where the Strait of Hormuz is and where this happened. Let me add back my news document. Okay. So one of the Fantagraphics co-founders, Mike Catron, he was on Facebook to relay this news that this ship, this cargo ship full of their upcoming comics, was hit by a missile, actually. Now, here's what he posted in part anyway. The report we have is that the ship has limped to a safe port where we await further news. Our thoughts are with the crew, and we hope and pray for their safety. This is pretty serious stuff. If a missile hits a cargo ship, I'm thinking some people probably died. But hopefully most of the crew is okay. Very unnecessary that this happened. Here are the 2 books that were in there. The Atlas Comics Library #9, Weird Worlds. That's collecting old Marvel comics when they were Atlas. Russ Heath, Bernie Krigstein, Bill Everett, Joe Maneely, Carmine Infantino. Really amazing creators. This was the horror stuff that Marvel was doing in the 50s. Also the book Bitchy, The Exasperating Existence of Midge McCracken by Roberta Gregory and Helen Chazan. Were scheduled to be released in early July. Let's be real, folks. This was the full print run that was on this cargo ship. It's at least delayed, if not destroyed. There's no way these books are coming to us in July. There's no way. So, yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad because, if this happened to a publisher like Marvel or DC, they can pivot. They've got other things, other big projects that they can pivot, and if there are emergencies. Not saying that it wouldn't hurt them, but there's ways. Now, Fantagraphics is big for indie, but they're still indie. Having 2 big books like this be delayed is going to financially really hurt them. And it's just too bad. You know, they have nothing to do with the politics that are at a higher level. I'm sure they do have insurance. I'm sure that the cargo ship carrier itself has some sort of insurance for their cargo. But those things take time. If anybody here has ever had to use insurance for healthcare or their car, you know that it isn't very fast. Apparently, that's not abnormal for an entire print run to be on one cargo ship. Because guess what? Statistically, super safe. Statistically slow, but super safe. Both titles were printed in India. They were on their way to the port of New York. But President Trump decided to attack Iran. Our country killed their Ayatollah. I don't think it's a big surprise that Iran responded in one of the few ways they can. Iran is not like, look, they have Tehran, super beautiful modern city, but it's not a world power in the same way that China is, right? It's just not. So we had to expect that this is the kind of thing that would happen. It's a total bummer that it's affecting the industry that we all love. It's a total, it's really, really sad. I definitely feel for primarily the crew on this cargo ship. Like, that is just, you know, some blue collar workers just trying to make a buck. And I feel for Fantagraphics, who is not, you know, in a position to easily just go like, oh, whatever, the comic won't come out in July. So like, if it's destroyed or damaged, will they get an insurance payout? Yeah, but that doesn't account for the delay in a scheduled release and now a gap in their release schedule. That costs money too, that you're not going to get from any type of insurance. It's a bummer. It's an interesting question, but I don't know anything about that. India has printed plenty of comics in the past. You know, now that you say that, though, China probably would be resistant to publishing both of these books. China will publish almost anything, but they don't like certain supernatural things. They just won't publish them. Or, and of course, anything that criticizes their government, but I don't think they need to worry about that with these two comics. Absolutely, it depends. Like, did the shipment survive and it just needs to be shipped again? Was it partially damaged? Was it totally destroyed? We don't know yet. This just happened. That was the joke earlier. So yeah, pretty crazy story, to be honest. I never would have expected comics to get drawn into this latest conflict. I'll pivot to some Marvel news. So, last year, you may remember this, I remember this, a bunch of Marvel heroes and villains were featured. They did 28 variant covers drawn by J. Scott Campbell. Well, you create all that as variant covers, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, we kind of own all this great art by J. Scott Campbell, who definitely sells comics. So this June, Marvel's going to compile them all into an art book called Just Spectacular Collection. And they're calling it #1, but to be clear, it's everything. The issue also is going to have extra back matter material, though. If you've already got these covers, you still might want this because you're that kind of a fan. But if you don't, it's kind of cool that you're getting all this extra stuff. It's going to have his original pencils and inks and commentary, not just on this project, but his career at Marvel, how he decided which characters he was going to tackle. I find that part the most interesting. Very, very cool. Yeah, I wish he'd do interior stuff again. I just don't think he ever will, to be honest. I mean, other than maybe a small story if it really gets his attention. He's pivoted to being a cover artist, and it pays well, and it's a little easier, I think. It's not easy, but I think it's easier. I would guess yes. The reason why is, sure, Marvel might be a total jerk and just be like, no, you already drew it. We're going to publish it. But these companies usually know to treat some of these certain artists well. They know that it's good to stay in their good graces and be fair. Danger Girl was fun. A lot of people saying they love Danger Girl. Danger Girl was fun. Danger Girl was very fun. Here's another Marvel thing. They announced this week that they will make an official X-Men 97 prequel comic, as in prequel to season 2. It's going to begin June 3rd, and the cartoon returns this summer. They don't have an exact date on that. It's going to be a 5-issue series. It's going to use writer Steve Fox and artist Salva Espin. They did the prequel comic, The Prelude, for season 1. So same guys, same team. If you wanted that, it's in the same continuity. This comic will explain where each of the X-Men ended up, because when season 2 ended, the team was flung through the time stream. So they're all in like places in the past and the future. They're separated, which I always think is a good idea for a little while, to separate a team somehow and have them work to come back together. I think that that's a pretty classic superhero story, working to come back together. Use their smarts. Could be fun. Could be fun. Oh, and obviously the covers are by somebody else. That's by Todd Knock. Todd Knock does the covers. You know, I really, really loved X-Men 97. That surprised me how fun it was. I really got into it. I don't think I ever finished watching the original cartoon in the 90s. I watched the first season, then I think I trailed off. But I got into 97 and I could jump right in, and it was a lot of fun. I wish Marvel would do a book like this. Oh, yeah, of course, exactly. He's talking about the J. Scott Campbell. Like, why doesn't Marvel collect all the cool things Mignola has done for? Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. Anyway, really, really fun show. I'm excited to see season 2 come back. I'm hopeful for it. I love the characters that they introduced in season 2. You know, Sunspot and Forge became pretty prominent. Obviously, you know, they killed one of the main characters off, but now season 2 has the time stream going on. So I'm thinking that there's a possibility that, you know, a character could come back that way. But even then, it's not like they brought this character back the next episode. So kudos to them for having at least a bit of emotional stakes involved. Oh, okay. This is cool to me. This is cool. This isn't a comic, but it's based on a comic, okay? 1997, Junji Ito released one of his anthologies. It was called House of the Marionettes. That's what it translates to. Short stories, short horror stories. In there was a short horror story called In Old Records, okay? There's an image from it. The story is about this haunting song on an unmarked vinyl record. If you listen to it, it seems to drive you mad. Short, cool idea. So there is now a Kickstarter launched to offer a vinyl audio drama based on that. It's an audio version of it. It features performances by Poppy. If you've ever listened to her talk, she's got a very interesting cadence to her voice. I'm Poppy. That was a perfect impression, okay? They also have an iconic Japanese voice actor, Shoko Nakagawa. So yeah, just really, really cool. And the Kickstarter, it's up right now. I've got a description. I've got a link in my description because I thought it was worth passing on. You could get color versions of the record too. There's glow in the dark or light blue. But the jacket cover for it is a bloody handprint, and that's actually Junji Ito himself. They've got like video. He dipped his hand in like the paint and smeared it till they got the right one. So yeah, I thought that just seemed like a cool idea to adapt a song that's about music and about records and put it on a record. So I don't know how many people out there actually still have a record player, but I think more than used to. I think more people do these days. Not only has vinyl made a comeback, apparently Gen Z likes physical media more than previous generations. So that's helping things like collectibles, like comics that we like, cards, and even older media like VHS tapes and vinyl records and Blu-rays and things like that. Like Gen Z likes physically having something because they grew up with everything streaming. So there's something cool and maybe kind of kitsch about having a physical version of them. I think that's wild. I hadn't heard that the cassettes are coming back. There are certain things I look back at and I go, you know what? I did like this certain aspects. For instance, it sounds dumb, but if you were listening to a cassette or you were watching a VHS tape and you left off, it's going to be exactly where you left off. You know, there's no queuing it up and guessing like a little forward or a little backward. Now, yeah, there's rewinding time or fast forwarding time if you don't want to be where you're at. But it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Records and comics, I love it. I love it. I wish that in a way that they'd also sort of get a little into action figures so that like the production runs on those could go up and the prices could come down as somebody that gets a few action figures here and there. But I will settle for comics doing well. And if it's thanks to Gen Z finding physical media amusing, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Getting into tapes is absolutely nuts. I get everything else, but tapes are awful. Tapes aren't awful, Chuck. They're cool. I loved my Walkman, and I like tapes. I don't know. I like how they looked. I was amused at the Transformer Soundwave having transforming mini cassettes. I liked putting my pencil in it and winding them tighter. I don't know what to say. I like tapes. All right. Yeah, and mixtapes. How cool was it making a mixtape for a friend? Like, yeah, we could just send links to like some cool songs and make a playlist. But I think that was a cool gift. If there was a girl you liked and you made a mixtape because you were like, these songs make me think of you in different ways, I think that was pretty dope. I think that a mixtape was a pretty dope gift. And the only reason you'd be like, you know, pausing to give that away now is you're like, well, did somebody even have a tape player now? I understand the argument. I won't fight you on it. I do get your argument. That's a bridge too far for me, Andy. The 8 tracks, we had some of those growing up. They only had like 4 songs on them and they were too clunky. I did not love 8 tracks. All right, we've got more news. I'll stay with doing a little bit of manga news. This is pretty big. Viz, they license the English translation of Chainsaw Man from Shueisha, and they released a statement this week. The Shonen Jump team have confirmed Chainsaw Man is ending, but details are yet to be confirmed. That said, I don't know what other details we'd need. They confirmed that the series, created by Tatsuki Fujimoto, who I think is an incredible writer and artist. Chainsaw Man, not my favorite thing that he does. But Look Back and his other short stories, incredible. Love Fujimoto-san. Anyway, it's going to conclude with chapter 232, released on Jump Plus, basically just over a week from now, March 25th. If you don't know, if you haven't read it all, the manga is split into 2 parts. You probably mostly have heard about part 1 because part 1 follows Denji. He's like this poor kid that makes a deal with the chainsaw devil and can become Chainsaw Man. There are a bunch of devils, and he starts working for the government to hunt down these other evil devils. That's the general gist, the starting point of part 1. Second part jumps forward a little, and it follows Asa, and she's a high school student who allies herself, makes a pact with the war devil, and is tasked with hunting down Chainsaw Man for revenge. Not everybody knows about that yet, because that's, yeah, the anime and the movies and stuff are still like very early on. But yeah, that's going to be the whole thing. Oh, I have not heard anything about a part 3, at least not this week. So anyway, yeah, but this is ending, and yeah, big deal. Big deal for such a popular manga to end, even if it's just a chapter. Great artwork. Really, really beautiful. I think that Chainsaw Man is just a little nihilistic for me, which is saying something, because I do like horror and some dark stories. I don't dislike it. I really don't. But I also can't call it my favorite manga that's coming out right now. But the artwork, zero issues with it. Really beautiful. Really beautiful. I think this is the last manga thing that I have to mention. But Dark Horse announced that they're going to publish a deluxe edition of the manga adaptation of the Dunwich Horror. Pretty famous H.P. Lovecraft story, if you know anything about Lovecraft, which I honestly only know a little bit about. But that's going to come out September 29th, this deluxe edition. Go Tanabe is the mangaka who's been adapting a lot of Lovecraft stories. He does them in serialized, so he's been doing this for the last several years. But these stories are like 100 years old now. It's kind of amazing that he's taking such an American horror form and adapting it in manga. It's pretty interesting. I've picked up what do I have here? The latest one I picked up was The Shadow over Innsmouth. They're all set in Massachusetts, where I grew up, which is interesting. And it's pretty disturbing stuff. Haunting terror, haunting stuff. But yeah, Zach Davison, he's a local guy here in Seattle. You probably know him from working with Peach on her various X-Men comics, including Ultimate X-Men. But he's also a translator, and he translates Go Tanabe's work for Dark Horse. That's interesting. I didn't really know that, to be honest. Lovecraft stories are beloved in Japan. The Dunwich Horror is my favorite Lovecraft. Wow. The book is going to be over 600 pages. It's a big story. Came out serialized, but now it's going to be collected into one humongous deluxe volume. And it's a core part of the Cthulhu mythos that he's created. So, yeah. Oh, okay. Call of Cthulhu is the most popular tabletop role-playing game in Japan. It's our D&D over there. You know what? The next time I get to go, I always pass stores that have tabletop role-playing somewhere. And I'll have to check that out. I really like Go Tanabe as well. Yeah, I feel like he's somebody I'm still learning about and discovering. Yeah, yep. That's really kind of how he got most of his start in comics, is doing some translation. He's done Devilman, pretty famous one. I think that was for 7 Seas. He's done all the Go Tanabe stuff. He's done stuff with Peach. So yeah, he's done a lot of translation, as well as writing some of his own comics and writing a lot of books. He's written a lot of books, Zach Davison has, about yokai and other supernatural stuff over there. And his big goal, I know, is to bring over more stuff by a very influential manga creator. I was trying to see if I had an example close by, because often I do, but I don't think I do right now. Shigeru Mizuki. Shigeru Mizuki brought a lot of yokai and created a lot of yokai to manga or comics. But he also did nonfiction books, like on the Showa period of Japan, tons of them. A biography on Adolf Hitler. Really interesting creator. Lost his arm in World War II. Taught himself to draw with the other arm. I'll make an episode about Mizuki someday. Just incredible. I didn't know that. Zach Davison has called Lovecraft the most influential American author from the last century. He is very influential, also kind of racist, but it's hard not to have that when you go back 100 years and more. I'm thinking of like influential authors, and sorry, who wrote Grapes of Wrath? I would call them one of the most influential authors. Oh, that's amazing. You got to visit Mizuki's hometown. I'm really that's cool. Yeah, Steinbeck. I was going to say Steinbeck. I think incredibly influential American author, but Lovecraft could be said to be very influential. As I think about it, who else would be considered as an American author? Because, you know, as soon as I start thinking historically, you think of all sorts of classic writers all over the world. Mark Twain is a great argument. Mark Twain. Yeah. And the first one to really, out of like the names that were thrown out, have some humor to it. Mark Twain's incredibly. Robert Howard, not inconsequential. I wouldn't call him quite up there. As when you get to more modern stuff, Cormac McCarthy, sure. Emily Dickinson, Edgar Allan Poe. I might put Poe above Lovecraft because I don't think there'd be. Well, who knows? Stephen King is certainly prolific and is influential, but I don't think he's influential in the same way. Wasn't Tolkien not American? I thought he was British. I could be wrong. Bradbury could be a good argument. Charles Schultz, Peanuts pretty damn influential, known worldwide. Hemingway, I love Hemingway. Well, there's a lot of great names. I'm glad to see everybody here so literary. Yep, I love some like pulp. I have no disrespect for. I respect it a lot. Edgar Rice Burroughs, yeah. Edgar Rice, Harlan Ellison, Hunter Thompson, Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby would be up there for me. Frank Herbert, also kind of an awful person, but good author, right? A lot of these people are. That's interesting. That's interesting. I got to talk to Zach about that because I do chat with Zach. You know, like I say, he's local. He's a great guy. He said Twain's influence doesn't compare. I do not agree with that. That's crazy. Bill Waterston, Milton Caniff. These are great. Dune. According to Webster's dictionary, a definition is... That's how I start all my speeches, by the way. If you ever ask me to give a wedding speech, Webster's dictionary defines a union as two or more parties working together. And I think that's what this wedding represents. Well, that was kind of fun. I love it when something I think is going to be a super quick news item actually turns into a conversation here. I am a big fan of Arthur C. Clarke, so I'd hear that out. Oh, he really hated gay people, including his own son. Yeah. And if you read Dune, I'm bad at names. Who's the big, large, evil guy that like floats around and, covers himself in oil? He's written as like this, like very effete gay guy that's also like terrible. Baron Harkonnen. Anyway, yeah, he was terrible to his own son. He was really bad. If you read about like who he was as a person, unfortunately, not great. But sometimes not great people can still create great artwork. And that's why I'm here to talk about how much I love Hitler's paintings. I'm just kidding. What if I really like all of a sudden just stunned everybody by like revealing that that's what I was really into? All right, I'm gonna keep going. Oh, this one seems cool to me, but I like werewolf stories. So, Skybound and Universal are continuing their collaboration, creating new comics based on their take on classic monsters. They announced this week a Wolfman book. Wolfman's cool. Anyway, Universal Monsters Blood of the Wolfman will be the 7th horror collaboration. It's going to be written by Joshua Williamson, one of the most popular writers right now, and artist Leo Max. Folks, I talked up this incredible comic by Joe Hill, Stephen King's son. I don't need to qualify like that. Joe Hill is incredibly successful on his own. I feel bad that I even mentioned that. Anyway, Joe Hill wrote this awesome comic that I love called Basket Full of Heads. Cool, sort of funny, but like scary horror comic. Leo Max was the artist, and I loved the art in it. I thought it was really great and to the point. So seeing Leo Max do something horror again is awesome. Anyway, the story is going to follow college student Adam Yeager as the only survivor from a massacre at a party. So it sounds like it might be set more modern day than sort of in the past. But I don't know that Wolfman needs to be tied to the past the same way Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy kind of benefit from that. They did do a modern day when they did Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I thought it worked really well. So we'll see. Williamson is working very, very hard, taking advantage of his opportunities. I love his work right now on G.I. Joe. I know that's seems random, but that's the one I love. Anyway, could be fun. That comes out June 24th, 4 issues. Thank you. I'll talk more about that later. Just real quick, my latest episode tanked. It tanked so bad, I find it hilarious. It's like embarrassingly bad, but I like the episode. It just is like funny how bad it did. All right, I'll keep going with the news. Something is Killing the Children, the novel? Yeah, Crown Publishing Group, in partnership with Boom Studios, is going to publish Hope is a Knife, set within the world of Something is Killing the Children. So that's coming out in time for sort of the Halloween season, October 10th. Good timing. Series author and co-creator James Tynion IV is writing the book along with somebody, Kirsten White. And White wrote Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, and that won a 2018 Bram Stoker Award. That's very cool. She also wrote a Star Wars book that was a big hit. So yeah, going to cooperate. The book is going to follow the main character, Erica Slaughter. So it's not like super tangential. It is about Erica Slaughter. And the book says, quote, she has a very straightforward job. Find the monster, kill the monster, then do it all again. But when she arrives in Badwater, Idaho, nothing is simple. She can't decide or can't determine whether the horrific death of a 12-year-old was caused by a bear, a person, or something much worse. Complicating matters is the charismatic doomsday preacher who is quickly leading the small town to the verge of hysteria. If Erica wants to save the surviving children, she has to figure out which kid's fears might have summoned a monster, and fast. I would never have expected this to become a book, but I also wouldn't have expected Junji Ito's manga to become a record. So kind of a nice little surprise here. He is definitely putting out Something is Killing the Children slowly, but I do still like that comic a lot. So, you know, I cut him some slack. Let's see. Hi. Hello, sister. It might have been Man Bear Pig. I'm here for this. Having a property I really like, tell a new story in a new world as a novel is pretty awesome. You know, I never read them, but those Walking Dead novels were really popular. I could see an advantage to this because I think that horror in a novel form sometimes works really well. Like, I love the visual medium of comics, right? But there is something big to be said about how a novel makes you imagine the scary stuff in your head, and whatever you're scared of that you're imagining is probably going to be a little stronger than whatever somebody else envisions. So I think that that's an interesting way to do it. I am not against it. I am not against it at all. And the idea that it could then maybe become like an audiobook, I like having scary stuff read to me too. That's fair. Yeah, Clive Barker novels are way better than anything on screen. And look, I love horror movies. I love horror comics. No complaints. But I do think that part of what makes Stephen King so popular is his way of getting you to think of the interpretation of something scary. Whether that's, being lost or a madman or a monster in the shadows. And I like the idea of delving into the inner headspace of Erica Slaughter more than you have to be very efficient in comic storytelling. Like, yes, you can get into their head, and I love that you can do that, but you have to be efficient. Otherwise, it's just walls of text. But a book is text. So I kind of like this idea, to be honest. I kind of like this idea quite a bit. We'll see. Haven't said that in a while, have I? But that's my catchphrase. We'll see. Totally different, but still sort of indie publishers. IDW, they launched 2 podcasts about their comics, and I was interested in that. Just seeing a publisher delve into newer media as a way to promote themselves. I thought that was definitely pretty interesting. And I say podcasts, it is released as an audio podcast, but at least the first one, Creator, they also made a video of. So if they keep doing that, that does interest me. But here are the 2 shows. Creator is a chat with 2 comics pros. The first episode is up this week. It has Patrick Horvath, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, and Ben Wiki. I'm not as familiar with Ben Wiki, but yeah, just a cool idea actually to have just 2 pros that maybe don't even know each other at all. I like that idea of having them talk to each other. Yeah, there was that era, late 90s into the early 2000s, where DC was making novels based on their biggest hits. I liked it. I don't think I knew that. Image has a podcast? Interesting. Oh, I think I missed that, folks. Thank you. I'm glad I brought this up then. I'll check it out. I'll be sure to check it out. I like actors on actors. So the idea of comic pros talking to comic pros, but not necessarily being a straight one person interviews the other, like a conversation back and forth, that doesn't sound like a bad idea at all. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know about that either. Wait, is this Stepan? Is that you? You're certainly using a PFP by him, so are you sneaking in here? Shouldn't you be working on your mystery DC comic? Unless you want to announce it right here. Thank you for watching. I appreciate having you here, man. I'm excited to see whatever this mystery project is, okay? I'm paying attention. Rex says that Ben Wiki's book, More Weight, is amazing. Okay. And Image's podcast is called Let's Talk Comics. Good title. Wish they could have found a way to work Image in there somehow, but that's okay. What else? Oh, and the second monthly show is called Superlatives, and that brings IDW's editors in a head-to-head debate with another editor stepping in as the moderator to pick a winner once the pros have made their arguments. Fair. Seems fun. Seems like you might run out of like what makes it unique kind of quick, but maybe I'm just not thinking deeply enough. That sounds like one of my jokes from the monologue this morning. Marvel has a podcast. Don't know if you heard about this. Yeah, it's called Oh God, Please Somebody Tell Us What to Do. Good one, Winston. And stay tuned, Winston. I've got some Oni news coming up. Listen to the band The Mazingers. Yeah? You think it's something I'd like, huh? Fair. Thank you for the support. Appreciate it, man. Oh, no. I enjoy making the Golden Age episodes. Honestly, they're a little bit of an easier lift than deep dive analysis. And I know it's kind of different, and that's probably why they don't do well. But I got to do some things that interest me to just keep going and not burn out. So I don't mind that it bombed. We've got our Akira Yoshida joke of the day. Thank you, Beowulf. And hello, Erwin. Hello, everybody. All right, what else have I got? Yeah, I said I'd talk about, oh, there we go, folks. Hold on. Here's our exclusive. The mystery project that Stepan is working on is an epic tale of the Condiment King, the origin tale of the condiment guns. Oh man, that's good. All right. Yeah, Oni announced something new. This is interesting, folks, to me, as a guy that's interested in the technical aspects of comics. But Oni and Flux House have announced a new coloring system for comics. They're calling it Psychovision, and it's a new, unique combination of print processes developed for their upcoming new comic in August called Fort Psycho, a new coloring process. They say that they've got Pantone keyed covers for each issue. And that's co-creator Brian Hurt specifically engineered this to capture specific colors otherwise impossible to print under the standard CMYK process. So we're going to have some pretty vibrant covers from what they're showing us. But what I can show you as an RGB or any web page shows you as an RGB probably isn't going to quite do us justice for what it is going to look like in person. But expect, just a very vibrant color palette. So that sounds interesting to me. The comic, by the way, also sounds kind of cool. It's a 12-issue maxi series by Matt Kint and Brian Hurt. It's described as G.I. Joe meets Watchmen. There's a terrorist group called the Seven Seals, and they've sunk Singapore, right? So they sent a government team like G.I. Joe up against Seven Seals, and they failed so bad that the government disavowed them and locked the good guy team up for failing this bad. But now I guess they're going to have to escape and probably deal with Seven Seals again. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what this sort of this new coloring process is, because I've definitely done a lot of pre-production and pre-press stuff in both my jobs as well as printing indie comic stuff. So I'm very curious on a technical level what this truly will look like. Yeah. It's a little bit the A-Team. Yeah, it's a little bit the A-Team. But they say it's going to be pretty serious. So we'll see. This cover, by the way, by Louis LaRosa, that really looks kind of like a Dreadnought or something. That's got me in the... I would love to see Louis LaRosa do at least a guest issue of G.I. Joe. That would be cool. Louis LaRosa is great. He's awesome. If you don't know, Louis has done a bunch of stuff with Rick Remender. Really great artist. Another indie thing, there's a company called Rocketship Entertainment, and they're best known for bringing the webcomic Let's Play to print. But they're launching a monthly comic series. It's called Imperia. It's an epic fantasy. They've got writer David K. Wilson, artist Jack Solomon, letterer Scott O'Brown, editor Lee Nordling. And the series is described as an allegorical fantasy epic exploring corruption, prejudice, and disparity. Looks to me like it might be sort of aimed at young adult readers, if I had to guess. And Rocketship has also done some other stuff in comics recently. They just announced the other week that they were going to publish Panic Entertainment's horror comics. That includes stuff by David Dastmalchian, by the way, the actor who's been in like every comic book adaptation and has written some of his own comics. There's also a movie version of the Let's Play comic in the works now. Rocketship is fulfilling my crowdfunding. Didn't know they made their own books as well. It's pretty new that they're getting into it. Yeah, pretty new. But obviously they've got all those connections for publishing. So yeah, they're slowly turning into their own entity. And Imperia is going to be one of their first projects. So yeah, just thought I'd pass that on. Yeah, Brian Hurd is good. Brian Hurd is very good. Look at this. I think this art looks beautiful. As it should be, because there's a lot of money behind this, what I'm about to talk about. So, Ram V, we talked about how he and Evan Cagle and another comic book artist with an Indian name that I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I'll butcher it. But anyway, they signed a huge 6-figure deal with a French publisher, Morgan, for exclusive worldwide rights to a bunch of comics, really graphic novels. Well, the first one is going to be called Decidium, and we got to see a few preview pages. I'm only showing one, but you can look it up if you want to see some more. They've shared that because it's going to come out here too. Specifically, here's the description. Set in a future world ruled by a consortium of theocracies and corporations, Decidium covers the return of the old gods, fire, wind, volcanoes, jaguars, and their clash with the new powers in a swirling battle of control versus freedom. Image has the rights to publish the English versions here in North America, and they're going to publish Decidium on Free Comic Book Day. So that's coming soon, and then it's going to come worldwide later in the year. Yeah, I don't know if it's supposed to be in color eventually. I don't know. The future, Conan? Yes, the future, all the way to the year 2000. In the year 2000. The 4 classic elements, every culture throughout history has them. Fire, wind, also fire, jaguar. Sorry, I amused myself and I got a light chuckle. It'd be cool if I could amuse myself so much that I gave a big belly laugh, but again, I have to settle for. And I've got to talk about, anytime anyone from Smallville makes a comic, which I'm pretty sure has never happened until now, but anytime in the future a Smallville actor decides to make a comic book, I'll be there to report on it. So Black Star. Yeah, Titan Comics, who does Conan, for instance, Doctor Who, they announced Black Star, a gothic fantasy series written by Lana Lang herself, Kristen Crook, Peter Mooney, Eric Putzer, art by Joe Baccardo. It's going to be a 5-issue series that comes out July 29th, and it's described as both horrifying and humorous. It's set in early 19th century Winnipeg, northern Canada. Follows a man who uncovers a magical conspiracy. Actress Crook said, Black Star was born while Peter, Eric, and I were filming Burden of Truth in Winnipeg. We were inspired by the city's lore and, because we worked so well together, began spending our spare time on set and then, for years afterwards, developing our own take on the history and magic we imagined pulsing beneath its surface, shaping the rhythms of the city and the battles raging just beyond our view. Hey, kudos to you, Kristen. I live in Winnipeg. Well, Kristen Crook filmed something there years ago. Winnipeg, the peg. Good old magical Winnipeg. Hey, good for Kristen. I hope it comes out well. And damn you for being in that weird cult and getting your coworker to join it. Obviously, that ruined her. Oh, well, at least Kristen got out of it. Oh, I've got some Angouleme news. I like following Angouleme's story. So the organization that runs the Angouleme Comic Festival said that they're aiming to replace it with a new comics festival. They're just going to, put all the old one behind them, get a new organization to run a new convention in the city. Makes sense to me. So they already knew, or they already said they were accepting bids. They have now announced the 4 organizations that are in the running to run this pretty massive European comics festival. No, not the wrong actress. Kristen brought Chloe Sullivan, actress person. What's her name? Allison Mack. Kristen was in the cult first, and she brought in Allison. Then Kristen quickly left. Allison definitely did not. Just to be clear. All right. So here's the 4 organizations. One is called A-Board, and that's a Bordeaux-based events company. And then it's teaming with a lady who's a 12-year veteran of the old FIBD. They ran the convention in the past. And she was the youth artistic director. This is probably the front runner in my imagination, Groupe Morgaine, the company behind big annual music festivals in France. It's led by a woman named Marie Parisot. And if I'm not pronouncing the names, I'm sorry. I've never studied French. But she was the marketing director at Dargard, huge bande dessinée publisher, former CEO of Humanoids. You know, all the stuff like by Jodorowsky, heavy metal. Humanoids is huge. And Celine Bagot, former Ninth Art staffer and creator of the Pop Women Festival. I feel like you put all that together, that's a lot of experience with comics specifically. So that makes it a front runner to me. Can somebody save me from this cult? Thank you for the $2, Steve. I definitely appreciate that. Smallville was pretty crazy. It was much campier than their follow-up show, the Arrowverse and stuff, but it got the ball rolling, and it was more serious than Lois and Clark had been before it. It was just, they had a small budget, right? They had a CW budget, and then they were like, oh yeah, well, we can do Cyborg. Our Cyborg will be a guy in a gray hoodie. We can do Deathstroke. Our Deathstroke is an old man in a military uniform, but he has a sword. And then every once in a while they go like, oh, and we can do Hawkman and Dr. Fate and Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, and we'll give them comics accurate outfits. We'll do Zatanna and she'll have a comic accurate outfit. But then sometimes we'll do, you know, Flash and Aquaman, and they'll just have hoodies. Like, what? The Baja Blast must fall. I'm having some coffee. Ame kohi o tsukurimashita. Kohi o namimashou. All right. What are the other two? Or I'll get through this news. What are the other two? Côte Est. I don't know how to pronounce this. The events arm of Sud-Est Media Group, who mostly put on soccer and rugby events, and something called Visiona, organizers of the Comic-Con in Naples. That's something. Partnering with Fédération Charente de Ouvre Laquais. I don't know. They run education programs, career fairs, leisure facilities. Cool. Again, I go back and go, well, Groupe Morgaine seems to have the most comic book experience behind them. Okay. So who knows? Who knows? It's been narrowed down to these 4 organizations. They each get to make their pitch, and there will be a new festival at a new time of year. But that'll be a big convention likely for Europe. Nebula. The nominations for this year's, the 61st annual Nebula Awards were announced, honoring Best in Sci-Fi. And for the first year, they added a new category of Best Comic. Now, they have honored comics before, but it's in like Best Fiction, Best Literature, stuff like that. Now they've got a dedicated category for comics. Only took them 61 years. It's not like sci-fi nerds like comic books, right? Here's what's nominated. Second Shift by Kit Anderson. Carmilla, Volume 3 by Amy Chu. That's a cool book based on the Irish vampire story that predates Dracula. Helen of Windhorn, one of my favorites. And this annoys me a little. By Tom King. You're not going to include Bilquis Evely or Mateus Lopez. Those brilliant covers. I'm just copying this from what they announced, okay? That's not me. Fish Flies by Jeff Lemire. Always respect Jeff Lemire. Mary Shelley's School for Monsters. The Killing Stone by Jessica Mason. Don't know it. Strange Bedfellows by Ariel Slamet Rees. The Flip Side by Jason Waltz. And The Stone Shore Register by G. Willow Wilson. So anyway. That is an exceptionally good question, Beowulf, that I don't know. I don't know who their nominating committee is. But I would imagine that the association that runs Nebula has a committee of pros that basically puts the nominees forward. I don't know how they work. It's a good question. So, yeah, some really cool comics. Just thought I'd at least list those because it's like, hey, if this pretty prestigious association is going to nominate these, maybe you'll want to check one or two of those out. Oh, I lost somebody. Darn it. Yeah, I was a little annoyed by that, but I should have corrected it, but I didn't really have time. So sorry, everyone. I copy and pasted it without thinking, and so I'm part of the problem. And now I feel bad. I feel bad because I really get irritated myself as somebody that like thinks of myself as an artist, and I just sort of copied it without thinking through how I would be presenting this a little while later. Sorry, folks. My intent was not to ignore, the art part of it. I'm sorry about that. That was dumb. All right. Okay, so got something unique here. Let me set this up. My wife is taking some college classes right now for various graphic design fields, and she needs feedback on something. She has decided to do a project based on my show, so I'm going to get your feedback. She needed to get feedback from 3 people. Well, how about 250 people? Okay. So Chrissy's assignment, prototype testing. So this is just a prototype, not a final production. I'm using her words. This is, I'm going to show you a video in a moment. I'm going to show you a video. It's a clip that's sort of a proof of concept. So let me show that to you, and then I'm going to ask some questions. It's just a short clip, okay? It's a short clip designed to sort of show a short that could be created or like a template for shorts that could be created for comic tropes. Okay, so let me add this to the stage and we'll give it a listen.
Face was created by some obscure creator named Mart Bailey for the lesser-known publisher Columbia Comics, but it did run as a story in their anthology Big Shot Comics from issue 1 through 62, when the publisher finally realized that the mask gimmick was completely unnecessary. Weird and gruesome is the Face. Seated in his car, the Face fumbles at the base of his neck.
That's it. Pretty short. But now I'm going to ask some specific questions based on that. And feel free to reply. Be honest. Try not to be hurtful, but be honest. Let me add this back, and we'll see what questions we have. First, do you think more YouTube shorts in that style would bring more viewers to my channel? We'll just see if there's any folks. Yeah, exactly. VTuber. You love this. Again, it's more of the idea of it as compared to the exact execution. She's got limited time to put this together, and I think it's cool. I don't think so, says somebody. Okay. Maybe. More is always more. I would say yes. No. Thumbs up. Seems to definitely be a mix, Chrissy. Seems like it interests some people, but not everybody. So maybe I'll have some more questions. Animated stuff does do a bit better, but most times people like voice on videos without seeing peeps. Maybe the somewhat younger generation, that's fair. It would need something extra. Maybe, yes. Chrissy's appreciating it. If it was short form, yeah, big time. It would be short form. Can always try an A/B test. Let's see. I have always found shorts to be a distraction from the main channel. That's a valid point. I loved it. I think it needs more variation in facial expression. That's very fair feedback. Maybe a different clip. I'm not the main audience, but I think it would be better if it was just you at the bottom and not the animation. That's an interesting idea. Shorts are the way to attract new people to the to the channel. I'm not a big fan of vertical shorts, but the YouTube algorithm seems to push them. They do. This is a lot. I think the test audience probably wouldn't watch this live stream. The target audience probably wouldn't watch this live stream. Well, maybe that's true. There is a little different. Yes, but probably kids obsessed with YouTube shorts. It's going to be a no from me, dog. The idea is interesting. Unfortunately, it seems tough to boil your bigger ideas into short clips. Reminds me of Space Ghost. Maybe. Threads really hard what other people will like. Yep. I will get on to the next question in a second. I'll give you a tip. I dug it, Chrissy. Okay. Folks, I'm not trying to shortchange any of you, but there's more questions too. It could work. It might work better for me if the version of Chris was more cartoony. Also, it might help if Chris was looking directly at the camera. I like that. That's very specific. Do a clip of Chris eating 30-year-old cum. No. How dare you? All right. Do you think this visual style is attention getting? So we were already getting some feedback on that, but what do you think about the visual style itself that Chrissy came up with? Okay. I got to see some extras. She had about 6 different animated versions of me in very different styles. I didn't give any feedback for this, just to be clear. This is Chrissy's project. She's trying to see if she could come up with some sort of branding or marketing related to my channel, but it's in the context of a class. Okay. So it could use some hand expressions. Kids go apeshit for shorts. Be better if the robot hosted the animated short. Have to do the audio maybe. I'm afraid not. I've got some experience doing VTuber work. Hit me up. I agree with going more cartoony. I agree that making it slightly more cartoony would be a plus. Visual style should be more stylized and expressive. Fair. Visual style should match the intro. That's fair. I think that we didn't want to necessarily infringe on Harry Partridge's work, could push the contrast more. Not sure. Reminds me of the old Hi Joe cartoons. I don't think I know those. Not really. Thinking some more cartooning could work. Grabs attention. Don't know if it holds. I think it does get attention, but his shoulders cutting off abruptly is odd. These are fair. All right. It's a little distracting. These are good ideas. These are good feedbacks, okay? I can't show them all. Let me just keep going because there's, I think, 3 more questions. Do you think the animated character adds or takes away from the experience? As in, it could just be a short with the clip itself from the show, or it could have an animated version of me. Which do you think? Does the animated character add or take away? Chrissy, I knew you were going to get a big feedback. So yeah, people want animated Infotron. Adds. It adds. I think the animated face being there the entire time takes away. Okay. Animated character is best in this format. Make the avatar smaller. It just needs refinement, and that's fair. Animation needs to be about half that size and also be Infotron. I think the cartoon adds to it, takes away. I'd prefer seeing the clip. Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. This is fair. Chrissy's not going to be offended either. She's testing ideas, folks. She's testing ideas. She did a bunch of work, but it's work for school, so it's not like this has to go on the channel. Bit too long, but I like the idea. Okay. The animated Chris ads, just the clips would be boring. Maybe just his head at the top. Maybe. Okay. Let's see. If you saw this short pop up in your feed, would you click it or swipe away? I think that we've got some feedback towards this, but feel free if you've got anything specific to say to that. I think it takes away. Okay. Click. I would click it. Okay. Would click. Shorts do get a lot of attention. I would click for sure. Nice to see, by the way, EJ. If I didn't say it, swipe. I would click it. Not long, big. I definitely click it. I would probably not click it, but I never click shorts. That's good to know. I would click, it looks attractive. I'd click because I like comics and Chris. So you already sort of know the brand. Eyes definitely need to look at you. Looking away eyes wouldn't make me click it. That's very specific. I like that. Based on content, not the style. I second Chris eating 30-year-old gum. That'd be cool. You suggested that. I'd click, but I click any comic tropes. Okay. I seldom watch shorts. That's fair too. It's not for me, but I think a lot of people would click it. This is good, folks. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Last question, and then I'll move on to my next segment. How much of the video do you think you would watch before swiping away? Give a percentage. Again, I'll play.
This was created by some obscure creator named Mark Bailey for the lesser-known publisher Columbia Comics, but it did run as a story in their anthology Big Shot Comics from issue 1 through 62, when the publisher finally realized that the mask gimmick was completely unnecessary. Weird and gruesome is the face. Seated in his car, the face fumbles at the base of his neck.
So if you had clicked on that and I wasn't forcing you to watch right now, 15%, I'd watch it through, all of it, if I know it's from the channel. Let's see, remove, I'm going to just make it me right now. 100%, because it's informational, whether they animated it or not. I'd let it loop. It's too static for me, too long at the beginning. Okay. I'm getting a lot of money out of this Steve guy. I should do more of these. All right, here's some percentages, actually. Hold on. 100, 60% of the time, 100% of the time. 100, I want more good at SFX, and that's fair. You know, if we did this, it would probably be more refined, to be clear. 50%, I'd watch. All of it, I'm not a hard sell. I'd watch through. It's short, as it's you. Yep, okay. So a lot of people would watch it just because it's me, and that's kind. 20% because the mouth flaps in still image. Yeah. Okay. Hey, folks, this is really interesting. Thank you so much for giving my wife this feedback. You know, she's working hard and getting perfect grades in her class. Thank you. I'm in this weird position where she's decided to do something that maybe could benefit my channel, but I don't want to be too involved while the class is going on. You know, I don't want to like influence it. So I've just, but she's like, could you put this on so that I actually do get feedback? Because each of the people in her class are going to have to find like 3 family or friends to look at it. She has like over 200 people right now. She's getting a 4.0 now, thanks to you all. All right. Chrissy, I do hope that that's enough for you to, I think that that's more than enough for you to, have feedback for your project. And yes, she's got about 1 more week. She's in finals. So I think this is part of the final project. You know, who knows? You know, this is first, it's sort of a project for her. And then if it got a big response one way or the other, maybe we'd test it. I'm not sure. I got to think about it too. But thank you. I appreciate everybody giving their feedback. Tell you what, I think we've got a lot more show to do. Let's move on to reviews because, folks, there were some really big comics that came out this week. Absolute Batman, Transformers blew my mind for reals. So let me bring up the next part of the show, which is going to be reviews.
Let's review.
Review it.
The review.
The reviews are in. I repeat, the reviews are in.
Go to your reviews.
What? Speaking of bad reviews.
Don't worry about that review.
Let's review all the facts.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
Before we do, let's review.
Those reviews really came out fast.
Maybe we can review some right now?
I'm not going to review all that again.
Now let's review.
Not my worst review.
Let's review, shall we? to review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
There we go. There we go. I am somebody that loves comics, so I love media about comics, from documentaries to YouTube live streams, podcasts, and certainly the printed medium. I think a lot of people think that there's a bit of a gap in the printed medium. You know, there's certainly fanzines, and then there's some very, very tightly focused stuff by people like Tomorrow's, right? But there was certainly a long era where Wizard was a very popular comic magazine. And we've had others too. Comic Scene, Comics Interviewer, Hero Illustrated. There's been a lot, but it's not something that we have right now. And maybe that's because we can get stuff online so quickly, right? So what place would a magazine about comics have in the industry today? That's obviously the goal of the people making Comics the Magazine. They're calling it the magazine you demanded. And I'd say that that's pretty accurate. I've got parts of this that I like and parts that I'm not a huge fan of. So it's a fair price point for what you get. You know, it's not as thick as the old Wizard, but it is a good amount of content, certainly for $2.99 these days. Is it Wizard Comics? No, not exactly. I don't think it's quite trying to be, but in some ways it is mimicking some of their most popular features. What it tries to do to lean into, to make it different, is do more interview segments and roundtable discussion, not breaking news, right? Because any news that they're breaking here is probably going to be outdated by the time it hits print, right? And I think they know that. Publisher is Adam Freeman. He's got a company that follows statistics and stuff like that in comics and other things. Joseph Keating is the editor-in-chief, and he does most of the articles in here. Rico Renzi I really like, and he's the art director. So there's some good names behind this. They just do a joke thing here for the mailbag, because obviously there can't be any letters with the first issue, so they just have a back and forth with Chip Zdarsky. This might have been funny to me as a teenager, and I do think Chip is a very funny guy. A lot of this didn't interest me necessarily. But we start with I think I'm back. Okay, I think I'm back. I'm going to, if this is broadcasting and you're watching later, obviously there's going to be something weird here. But I'm going to wait and see if my audience says that I'm back. Okay, everybody says I'm back. Sorry about that, folks. Lost about a third of the audience. Honestly, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. I apologize. I don't know what exactly happened there because I was still getting an internet signal, but it wasn't strong enough to broadcast for some reason. So anyway, I apologize. Let me jump back in. We were doing reviews, okay? And what I was going to talk about to reset a little bit, Comics the Magazine. I like their idea to have their main article be about a popular comic right now. And to their credit, they interviewed everybody that works on it, from Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta to colorist Frank Martin, editors like Katie Kubert. I admire that. I'm glad that they talked to all of these people. I'm not 100% in love with how they've laid this out because it does come across as very like text heavy, even though that there are some images. And maybe that's weird of me to say because I don't know exactly how I would lay this out differently. Could it be the color? Should it be a white page with black text, or is that harsh on the eyes? I don't know some of these things. I would just say that maybe they need like even bigger font. Like it just, I looked at this and it felt like a lot. Like it felt tough to me. I think that honestly, the only thing I'd really do myself if I was redoing any of this is make the font a little bigger. That sounds like such an old man thing to say, but I do feel like it's small. I like that they interviewed all these people on what the goals were. It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea at all. I would love it if instead of just images of the comics, since they were talking to the creators, I would have loved to have seen more process images, behind the scenes shots of where they work, or, you know, pencils before inks, things like that. Okay, that's interesting. Andy seems to have a little bit the same opinion as me, right? Like it just feels blocky. Just, yeah, I can't quite see everything. Maybe I'm being nitpicky there. I like that that's what they led with. Okay, it's a good idea of where to lead. Some of the other segments, what do they have? A lot of stuff on Absolute. That's fine. That's good. They've got an original comic by the creators of Chew. I like the idea of having an original comic in it. And I actually like Layman and Geary from Chew, but it's a quick comic. I don't know. I wish that there was a little more to this. This thing I didn't care for. This is like a puff piece just talking up Ronda Rousey because she's got a comic coming out from who? AWA? I would rather see an article say like examining, hey, is AWA okay with using AI art because their Oz book, which sold hundreds of thousands of copies, it seems, definitely seems to be using a bunch of AI imagery. I'd rather have an article about that than saying like, hey, Rhonda, how is it to write a comic? Like, I don't believe that she had much involvement. Okay, whatever. There's a nice article on the history of Rick Veitch and Swamp Thing. It's quick, but I do like that. I like that. That's cool. Again, I do feel like they're using font size that's a little small, but maybe they've only got so much space and they're trying to condense it. But if that's the case, I would take a slightly bigger font size and a slightly smaller image. I would take that. This is an interesting idea that I think could use a little bit of work. It's a round table with 3 comics creators. And it's good. It's just kind of quick, actually. It's kind of quick. And it doesn't really get too deep. Maybe it needs to like be a bigger conversation and then they edit it down to just the juiciest bits. I know I feel like I'm complaining, but I just didn't feel like I got much out of this. And I sincerely like these creators. Tony Fleeks, Kyle Higgins, Scotty Young. I really like these guys. I didn't get a lot of new information out of this conversation. I like the idea in concept of a round table. I love that idea. I really do. I don't know. Like here's an idea. Here's an idea. If you have these guys do it, record it, have a QR code here at the end where I can listen to the entire thing and just have the juiciest bits in print. What do you think of that? Go if that works for you, Comics the Magazine, just take it, because I would love to read a magazine that I was really into. And maybe I'm not the audience for this. Maybe I'm too versed in comics and comics news. Maybe I'm too versed, so like I'm not getting anything, but like a newer reader, maybe this is aimed at the newer reader that this would all be new to, in which case I go, okay, if that's what you're aiming at, maybe I just didn't know that. Got something on indie comics in here. Good. I like this a lot. These are some quick little comics. I thought this was funny and charming, and I really liked it. There's ads throughout, and hey, that's fine with me. Pay the bills with ads. A History of Fanzines by Jim Rugg. This was my favorite part of the comic. And I'd say like maybe I'm biased because I like Jim Rugg, but I like the other guys in here too. I love Scott Snyder is like a guy that I really like as a person. Tony Fleeks and Kyle Higgins, I know them in person and I like them. But I really liked Jim's history of fanzines, because like that's sort of what this is. It's talking about the evolution of that. It's talking about books like From Alter Ego to The Comics Reader by fans like Jerry Bales. That's comic book history, and I thought that this read very, very well. And again, I guess this is kind of small text, but against the white background, I could just read this better than I could read like this. That's just me. I like this quite a bit. This was my favorite part. Going through the decades, just like a paragraph or two on, things like Hero Illustrated or Comic Book Marketplace. I really admire this article quite a bit. I feel like these photos of the magazines are almost definitely from Jim's personal collection. I've always admired how Jim is into comics and fanzines. He makes zines. He does. And I really like it. So that was a good article. I like that quite a bit. He even made this really cool infographic, a timeline. It's not like it adds tons of new information there compared to what you've just read, but I like it okay. I do like it. I think it's the strongest part of this entire issue for what it's worth. There's an art school. I respect what they're going for there, but I also feel like 2 pages is a very small amount to functionally teach someone and really guide their interest. Like if you were trying to learn how to draw, are you going to actually like monthly learn from 2 pages at a time? That's going to take you so long. Is the idea just to interest someone in drawing, in which case, instead of a lesson, maybe talk about tools of the trade or something a little more technical that you can dive into in just 2 pages. It's good art and it's a good lesson to a degree, but it's like, okay, this is talking about different ways you could draw pouches, okay? Relevant, fair. But then over here, it turns into like a little kid's game. It goes like match the pouch with the character. I mean, this more than anything else made me think, oh, maybe I'm way too old for what this magazine is trying to do. I'd say in a lot of ways better than Wizard, because it isn't trying to do the corny joke stuff that could really get old fast. Plus Wizard really, and I didn't always realize this as a kid, but it was really feeding into the mentality of investing in the comics. Like, this is the hot new thing. It had a lot of that. It had some interviews that were good. It did. But this whole thing of like match the pouch to the character, that's like something you'd give an 8-year-old to do. I was stunned at that. Sort of like a, then it gets into this weird section at the back. Okay. They've got their top picks. Okay. I'm not against that. Decent enough idea. But if we go a few pages past that, a lot of ads, first of all. We get this weird price guide that's only like, what's that, 2 pages? Yeah, 2 pages just picking random Marvel and DC issues that I guess are keys and showing like what they've been trading for. That doesn't feel useful to me at all. You know, if you're going to follow on a monthly basis something that can be in print, prices, I'd say just refer to online or something, or have a link. Go like, we're sponsored by CGC. Here's some prices. I don't care. You can do that. But give me like the actual sales charts for like how many copies of something have sold in a month. Even if it's a month old, I would find that really interesting. If you like, oh, okay, Absolute Batman sold 125,000 issues this month. Superman, Spider-Man sold 180,000 copies. I would find that interesting. Share that information with me. I'd be interested. Sharing like what certain keys have been going for lately, just sort of like random ones. This isn't useful to me at all. It's a weird idea. It feels very dated. I saved all the old Greg Capullo drawing lessons from Wizard. I agree. That stuff was useful. But imagine like getting it only on a monthly basis, 2 pages at a time. That's so little. And honestly, it's more like 1 1/4 pages. So I am being really critical. I do understand that. Here's the part that's closest to the old Wizard is they've got top 10 cover artists, top 10 interior, top 10 writers, top 10 titles, top 10 publishers. I'd love to know the methodology for them determining this. There's nothing that's explaining exact, like they just say it's based on pre-order and subscription data from over 60,000 consumers. Well, I could understand that for publishers and titles, but how does that translate to choosing who the top 10 writers and artists are? And then there's some weird things like, okay, some of these writers are photos, some of them are drawings. Over here, top 10 cover artists, and you're going to give me like a drawing of the artist instead of an example of their work? What? That's weird. That's really weird. Also, they say that over here, top 10 interior artists, they list John Romita Jr., someone I like quite a bit, but look at that drawing they chose to represent his work. Like of Peter Parker all beaten up. It looks weird. That's their example of a best artist? That's not fair. Top 10 interior artists, and some of them are photos, like of Jock or Jordi Belair. Also, if I go to top 10 cover artists, and somebody like, okay, some of these make sense. I'm like, okay, David Nakayama, sure, he does a lot of covers. Dan Mora, of course. Nick Dragata, hot right now, makes sense. Daniel Warren Johnson, Peach Momoko aren't listed in the top 10 cover artists? How many covers do they do every month? What? How does that make sense? It doesn't, does it? Am I crazy? Am I going too deep on this? I don't know. But I'm like, Marco Cicchetto is listed as one of the top 10 cover artists. He's a fantastic artist, but isn't he only doing the main covers for Ultimate Spider-Man? I don't know. I mean, I guess that might count. It's weird to me. It's weird. I don't understand it, folks. So it's a lot of hits and misses, but it is the first issue, so they'll probably work some kinks out to see, like, from feedback, mail feedback, like what is popular and what isn't. I might be crazy. Okay. I know. I'd love to see Jim in there. That's the thing, is, are they the writers and artists of the top 10 books? Not exactly, because they list that, like over here, the top 10 books. And if they're going to say that this is like from sales data over here, don't just give me the list. Tell me how many copies they're selling. I want to know. I want some transparency, and I want to know what things are compared to. I think that would be very helpful for the industry. But no, these are all Marvel and DC titles, and then you're going to say that Brad Anderson is in there, but he doesn't have one of the top 10 books, and that's not a bad thing, but like, why is he there? Top 10 publishers, Marvel Comics is number 1. They must mean purely on sales, because Marvel publishes more copies than anybody else and takes up the shelf space. I feel like there's some weird misses for this. If they're going to be a magazine, here's what I like. They're not trying to break news. That would be outdated too fast. That's fine. They're not trying to do too much jokey stuff. I'm happy about that too. I would say that some of their layout might use a little work. And the articles I enjoyed the most were the Absolute Batman and Jim Rugg's History of Fanzines. So give me like some really in-depth stuff there. But with who this is coming from, I know that Adam Freeman has access to pretty much more sales data than anybody else in the industry right now. So I would like it if they shared a little of that in this magazine. I think that would make it a lot more popular. It does seem based on the Wizard template visually and with the top 10 stuff at the back. Anyway, I spent a lot of time on that. I do know, but yeah, I had some thoughts. What else have I got? Picked up the second issue of Dork. And so this is a book that's super popular if it sold out so fast at the first issue. I'm like, I liked it, but I was like, is it that good? You know what? This is a really good comic. It really is. There's a couple reasons for that. One of them, it's got heart. It's got real emotional stakes in it. It's got an underdog of a hero, this half dwarf, half orc. And he's got a good heart. He's in a high fantasy land with stuff you'd see in, a D&D campaign. And he really risks his own life to help others, even when he's getting advice from like his sarcastic shield to just watch out for himself. That underdog vibe combined with like making a tough decision is pretty cool. And it does some cool, unexpected stuff with all sorts of weird magic fantasy stuff. But there's rules to it. It feels like there's authentic rules to how things work. I think that Brett Bean has a really captivating, cartoony style here that's only super exaggerated during like moments of action. And it gives it an animated feel. There's a really good amount of motion and sense of direction and stuff in this. I liked it quite a bit. I found the main character likable. I found his sidekicks kind of funny. I found the story beats a little unexpected in a good way. Of course, in a good way. Cool villain for the week that seemed almost unbeatable, but then it gets sort of the hero gets a boon based on his good behavior. I don't know what's happening on I Hate Fairyland. Sorry, I that's a good question, but I don't know. Yeah, I can see a little bit of Bakshi in this. Anyway, happy to say, for a book that seems to have a big, speculation bit behind it, it's got something more that backs it up, folks. It has a really good story at its heart and nice, consistent artwork that makes sense for the story and gives it personality. I very much enjoyed it. And I was not sure after the first issue, because the first issue felt a little wordy to me, but I was also like, but they're setting a lot up. So maybe that's just a first issue type thing. Just like a pilot episode of a TV show can sometimes not be the vibe that you get for the whole thing. I think I liked issue 2 more than I liked issue 1. Anyway, it's a pretty strong recommend for me. If you haven't checked it out yet, I got onto this late because I didn't expect it to be so popular, and I checked it out more out of curiosity. Like, what do people see in this? Is it just speculation? No, I think it's a good comic. I think it's a good comic that's giving us a little something different than everything else we're reading right now. I'm already reading Absolute Batman every month and enjoying the story. But I have to admit that I was pretty excited about an Eric Canetti 2-part story. I'm a fan of Eric's art, big fan. Yeah, this is Absolute Batman versus Absolute Poison Ivy, and it is a really freaky take on Poison Ivy. But if you've been reading any Absolute Batman, you kind of know that the villains in this are all legit sort of genetic monsters, and it involves a lot of strange body horror. And specifically in this, Poison Ivy hasn't just experimented with plants. She's experimented with animals and bacteria and insects, anything that's alive. She's sort of experimented with and really transformed herself such that she's so powerful. How does Batman, a normal guy, stand up to her? Because she can release spores and create dozens of clones. She can become a gigantic monster. Sorry, but Batman is still just a guy. He's got tools, he's tough, but how would he go up against this Poison Ivy? And what I liked about this is he's not quite the detective that Batman is in the main continuity, but he is very clever, and he survives just long enough to find a weakness in Poison Ivy, and it's more about logic than finding, like, a weak physical point. But look at how gorgeous, like, this weird monster is. Like, there's such a sense of intricate design to it. I love the sort of Venus flytrap head and mouth, the gigantic eyeball, the flowers, the wings. It really is a creature made up of all sorts of weird stuff. There's also some really strange stuff going on with the Absolute version of Court of Owls. I won't spoil that. That was just a big surprise. Yeah. This is a thing where, like, Gordon has Bruce Wayne clocked right away as Batman. And it makes sense. It makes sense. He's like, look, maybe not everybody's going to figure this out, but you're like 400 pounds. He's like, I'm a detective. It wasn't that hard to figure out. Eric he's a great storyteller. And the only reason I say that as like a bit of a surprise is he's also a really great designer, and sometimes a cartoonist will only have, or will mostly have, one set of skills, right? Maybe it's good storytelling, but maybe they're not so good at architecture or real life stuff like cars, or maybe they're just really good at people, or maybe they're good at animals, but Eric's kind of good at a lot of different things. And he's worked for a long time in, like, the video game industry and stuff, doing designs. So to see him working on interior pages on a comic is very exciting for me. I feel like it's a bit of a treat. I really do. Look, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so how much you enjoy it is going to be on you. I like it a lot. The art feels very kinetic and frantic, but it doesn't lose any detail. No. And it feels like if Eric had even more time than a monthly schedule, we might even get, like, some more detail on some of the stuff, but he knows when you've got enough to tell the story. It tells a very cool story. It's got a pretty scary take on a villain that I think also, I like this Poison Ivy quite a bit because she has a very specific motivation, a love for her mother. She was using the science not to advance herself or make the world a better place. People can have motivations like that, but a lot of times it comes from a much more personal, almost selfish point of view. And this is like Poison Ivy's mother was very, very sick, and she was experimenting with cutting edge technology as fast as she could. And she was very brilliant, but to specifically come up with a way to save her mother from sickness. And along the way, she turned herself into something pretty horrific. But there's a piece of her that wants to hold on to what she was, and that's her weakness. But I'm not going to give it all away. I will say I liked it quite a bit. I thought it was a fun 2-part excursion with a guest artist. And I think Eric came up with a really cool design for Poison Ivy. I think the coolest part to me is the sort of Venus flytrap head design that can emerge or go away depending on what she feels like being. I think that Poison Ivy has a motivation and a sense of self that's very grounded. Let's see, Canet worked on the crew of the Fire Breather animated movie under director Peter Chung. Andy, sometimes I forget what a great crew you had on that Fire Breather animation. Wow, Peter Chung and Eric Canetti. That's really cool. Do you know if there's anywhere that's still streaming? I feel like I'd love to go back to that if there was a nice, easy way for me to take another look at it. If you guys don't know, Andy did a great original superhero character called Fire Breather at Image Comics. Back around the time that like Invincible was coming out, Image was doing a nice push on creating a bunch of new creator-owned superheroes, and Fire Breather was one of the best. It really was. All right, so Transformers the comic has brought me back to my love of Transformers, which I, as a kid, loved Transformers. Maybe my first cartoon that I just was really, really into. Yeah, I'm not sure either, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere. At least for purchase. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. This is issue 30. Kirkman took over at issue 25 and has completed a 6-issue run with Dan Mora on art duties. This is the final issue by Dan Mora, which I'm a little bummed out because we went from Daniel Warren Johnson to Jorge Corona to Dan Mora. 3 top-tier artists, like 3 top-tier guys. I think Robert has done a great job keeping things moving and doing a good job keeping the focus on Optimus Prime. He's the character that we kind of like the most. He's a father figure and a leader, which can sometimes be hard to make interesting when you're on a team. Sometimes that's a challenge, but when you do it right, that character is very likable. When you do it right, Cyclops or Reed Richards, they come across as like the most likable part of it. When you do it wrong, it goes really wrong. But in this, Optimus Prime goes into battle against his comrade Alita 1. And Alita has been battling the Decepticons on their home planet of Cybertron for like millions of years, while Optimus Prime and the other characters that we mostly know in this story were actually unconscious. They'd crash landed on Earth and been unconscious for millions of years. So Alita has become a very battle-hardened person, and she's very angry at Optimus Prime for protecting Earth, because she's like, no, I've been fighting this war on our planet for millions of years. I need you and your troops there. And I get her logic. And I get how sort of damaged she's become over time. But she does have a good motivation. She just doesn't quite care for the characters characters. She doesn't care for humanity, but Prime does, and Prime feels a responsibility. And that's what makes him likable. Well, I'm going to spoil something for you guys in this if you're not reading it. If you are, you've probably already read it. But if you're not, I think it's worth telling you because it's going to set up the next arc for this. Optimus Prime decides that rather than battle Alita, he's going to let the Matrix of leadership decide who should be the leader of the Autobots, who is right. Because the Matrix is this weird metaphysical cosmic thing that knows, right? Chooses Alita Prime. So what does that mean for Optimus? He's Orion Pax now. Well, they don't say that word, but in the movie that just came out like a year or two ago, and in the cartoon, when he's not Optimus Prime, he's known as Orion. So yeah, he's gone back. He's still leading the Autobots on Earth, but he gave up the Matrix of leadership. It's a big change. And basically the team of Transformers, which it was getting to be a big cast, well, well, this gives us a cool story reason to take some of them off the board. They're doing something important that we might touch on as a subplot, but we've got a focused team with an underdog leader now. I think that's interesting to turn Optimus into this bit of an underdog. He's still him, but he's not like the same sort of power level that he used to be at. I think that this is an interesting direction to go. So story-wise, I'm really impressed with what Robert's done with this book, because Daniel Warren Johnson really did some great work with the characters. But Optimus has given us a Thundercracker that's pivoted from a Decepticon to an Autobot for a good reason. Now he's changed things up with Optimus Prime being a bit of an underdog character, which I think is going to be interesting for the future. And the only thing I'm worried about is what's going to happen art-wise with this book, because I think that the Energon Universe books are going to, like, long-term survive based on the art. I think any comic does. I think comics need, if you're going to be a top-tier comic, you have to continue to pay for the top talent, right? You can have fill-in issues by, like, very, very good, but you need, like, the best. And they said that joining them for, like, what, next issue, they're going to do a Megatron issue by Ludo Lullaby. He's a good artist, did a fill-in issue before for Megatron, and I liked it. So that's good. And then they said that Jason Howard is taking over. And I like Jason Howard. He did 2 issues, the Starscream flashback issues that Daniel Warren Johnson wrote. Getting that cow lick again. But he's got a much simpler style, and I don't know how exciting that's going to be long term. I'm a little nervous about, like, what happens with the book. I don't know. It's not the way I would have gone long term. But I don't. I'll give him time to impress me. I really will, because I'm enjoying this comic quite a bit. But this is a great issue, folks. Sort of the end of a mini arc by Kirkman. Sets up some really interesting things for the future. It's a good comic. Yeah. The only thing I dislike is that there isn't more of it to read. I like it. I don't understand why taking the Matrix would make him revert to Orion Pax. Wasn't he rebuilt into Optimus Prime before he got the Matrix? It depends on what continuity you're using, but there have been stories before where the Matrix levels you up, essentially, and can make you a Prime. And without it, you're not a Prime. You're just sort of a bit of a smaller character. So if you watched Transformers 1, that was that animated movie last year, that was a pretty good movie that didn't do well, but it was pretty good, I have to admit. That used the logic that, you, like, first of all, you needed a transforming cog, and that made you a little bigger. But the Matrix of Leadership would literally make you a much bigger entity. Okay, thanks. I'm glad I'm not necessarily the only one, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody either. I think Jason Howard did a really good job on those 2 issues with Starscream. But there's a certain amount of energy and detail and stuff that I think you get with going from, Daniel Warren Johnson, Jorge Corona, Dan Mora, very exciting but detailed artists. And I think that, like, if you look at them, they do each have some strong manga influences for the action and quite a bit of detail. And I think that that's something that was benefiting the comic. But we'll see. I'll just do some quick reviews for the rest, just saying whether I recommend it or not. I enjoy Ninja Turtles writing-wise very much with Gene Lun Yang on it. I think I thought that Jason Aaron's sort of slight reboot, or well, yeah, that's sort of what it was. I mean, it didn't reset continuity, but it reset the story. Was good, but I really like what Gene Lun Yang's doing. He's making the characters a little more defined in my book, a little more likable, and they've got a really personal conflict because their dad, Splinter, is back, but he's kind of half villain. He is seeing these potential futures where his sons are killed, and he'll do anything to prevent that, which means he turns into this like mystical entity called Ujigami that goes after anything that will kill his sons. And in this one, it finally gets to the ultimate point where something has to be done. He's trying to kill Casey Jones because he's seen a future where Casey Jones kills Raphael. And ultimately, Raphael's like, look, no offense, but like Casey's like a brother to me. And if he killed me, I think he probably had a good reason. So I'm not going to let you try to hurt my friend. And I thought that was really, really cool. I'm sure we'll get to a point where Splinter gets like sort of healed or something, but there's some great supernatural stuff happening in this. The Foot Clan is allied with this witch called Shinigami, which is a really cool name, by the way. Like it means like a death god in Japanese lore, but she's a witch and she's doing some really cool stuff. I'm enjoying this a lot. This is my sort of sleeper book that I recommend to people. Bad Idea is putting out a book called Ordained. I think it's only going to be like 3 issues. This is issue 2. And in a lot of ways, it does read as like a little bit of like a movie, like a proof of concept for a movie. But the story's so interesting, I don't care. It's about a guy who was like a military badass, had a crisis of conscience and a faith, and he became a priest. And in this, the mafia is going after him. This guy is a total badass, but he won't kill. But he will defend himself and really brutalize people coming after him. This issue has crooked cops, bunch of action scenes, good art by Trevor Hairsine. Although, if I'm going to give it a critique, I'd say that this 2-page splash action scene, slightly confusing for the order. Just because... Look at this. Okay, 3 across, right? Here, let me back out a little. Let me just explain something. 3 across. I read that with an inset of 2. Good. Now I read here. Good. I start to get a little confused because this panel gets bigger. So I'm like, wait, does that mean I go 1, 2, 3? Or do I go 1, 2, 3, and then over here? Do you sort of see where I get confused? I don't know if I'm making that clear, but I sincerely was confused if I went from this, or this. It is this. But why is this one bigger? And then back here. If this was all even like this, I would have read in a Z pattern a little more clearly. I know that seems like a real nitpick. It legit throws me a little. Is this John Wick-esque? Absolutely. Does that make it bad? No. It's fun. It's really fun. It's really cool. I like this main character. I like him a lot. And even though he's a total badass, you're like, well, he's still just a guy. So, you throw a corrupt cop that he wouldn't suspect at him, or you throw like too many bad guys, there's no way he's going to be able to take them on, especially if he won't kill. It's really fun. It's a great badass story. Didn't Robert Venditti also create Surrogates, which got turned into a movie? Did he? Surrogates. I sort of remember Surrogates. Who drew that? Somebody good. Who drew Surrogates? Thank you, Joshua Clark. I might be nitpicking. I was just talking through that, even though I thought that the artwork for the people and stuff is good, I also found some pages of the storytelling slightly confusing. Only slightly. It wasn't a mess. By the way, this is a great 2-page spread that does go all the way across, showing like a SEAL team type squad or Green Berets sneaking into a drug dealer's mansion at night and doing a mission. And it made me curious enough, since they use silencers, to actually pull up a series of videos. I was like, do silencers really make guns as quiet as they do in the movies? Because the movies must really exaggerate that, right? Well, first of all, of course they do. Of course the movie's exaggerated. It isn't just a... But what I was surprised by is there are certain pistols where a silencer turns it pretty damn quiet. By the time you get up to rifles, you need a really long barrel to suppress or silence properly. But there's certain handguns that would still be very, very lethal and are surprisingly quiet. Surprisingly quiet. Anyway, it made me interesting. Surrogates was drawn by Brett Wendell. Movie star Bruce Willis. That's right. That's right. I was just going to look that up, so thank you for showing. Oh, okay. There's going to be 4 issues then. Okay, so there's a one-shot that comes out after this, and then it'll come back to wrap it up. They're going to give a one-shot to this hitman that they're going to send after him. So we're going to sort of get a villain side story real quick, which actually, pacing-wise, I kind of like. You get like 2 acts, a third sort of side story to set up this villain, and then you'll get the big finale. I kind of like that for like, you know, the roller coaster ride. Kind of like that. This one was fun, but not perfect. I got Spider-Man Meals to Astonish, which the main thing is like this news story where, I mean, let's just say it. It's Marvel's editor-in-chief, C.B. Cebulski. They give him a different name, and he supposedly works for the Daily Bugle, but that's C.B. Cebulski. And Peter Parker meet real-life Chef Andres. What's his name? Chef Andres. What's his last name? I always think of him as just Chef Andres. He runs World Central Kitchen, which helps a lot of people in disaster zones. What's his name? What's his name? It's not even telling me. They just call him Chef Andres. Shit. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Look, this story, it's a little dumb. Electro decides to like attack the chef's restaurant because he's not paying money to the mafia. And then he teams up and like sort of tells Spider-Man what to do. He's like, Spider-Man, you go distract him. I'll turn on the fire suppressors and we're going to take out Electro. I'm like, dude, I don't need the chef to be like a literal physical hero. It's a little dumb, but whatever. It's fine. What I liked was there's also a bunch of short little things with like Jeff the Landshark. Fine. These little text fluff pieces. I don't give a shit. This is a little funny. A 2-page multiverse with Spider Ramen versus Dr. Takoyaki. Means octopus balls. Whatever. Here's the best part. This was previously a Marvel digital comic by E.J. Sue called Test Kitchen. Folks, it is a really charming story with some of EJ's best art. It's great. So, this is Anna Amayama, who runs her own food truck, and she's got all sorts of influences from the world. Okay, that's fine. During a battle with Fin Fang Foom, Iron Man crashes and destroys her food truck, but comes back later to make things right. And he loves her food. Look at I love that this story can allow for like really expressive, funny characters. This looks like some of the best manga stuff out there to me. I love it. Thank you, people, for speaking up. Jose Andres, who's a really great guy. Honestly, World Central Kitchen is a fantastic organization, okay? So I'm fine with them making a comic hyping it up. I am. He's a good person. But I love this story by EJ about Anna. Anna Amayama is just a really likable character who goes through this series of tests to maybe become Tony Stark's personal chef. He like, you know, has her create a meal to impress Emma Frost, the White Queen. And it's like, oh yeah, she's a little bitchy and super rich and super judgmental. She doesn't censor herself. She'd be a great person to go up against. Later, she has to like cater to the Avengers and like find something that would impress all of them. But I love how expressive some of these characters are. The designs are consistent. Like, look at how EJ turns like just 1/3 of a page into a super dynamic, exciting cooking bit. And I relate to it. I'm like, of course, like throwing the herbs, a dash of sauce, the way you baste things, the way you will cook things on a specialized grill. I go, this is brilliant. This is brilliant storytelling. It's really fun. She makes cooking seem like a cool. Did I say she? I meant the character there, but I'm really talking about EJ. Makes the cooking seem like a cool challenge, and I feel like he draws people eating like they're actually really digging in and enjoying it. Like, let that folks look at like Black Panther and Tigra digging into that chicken. It's gorgeous. So I like the backup, like half of the book the most. And I do like this beautiful painting by Peach of somebody enjoying more of like, a traditional ramen at a restaurant, because that is definitely how it looks when you're in Japan and you get some. Got the seaweed on the side, half an egg, all that good stuff. Anyway, I recommend this mostly for the EJ story. That's the second half of the book. I thought that the first half of it was like a little cheesy as a story. At the same time, if this gets some more visibility or support for Chef Jose Andres and World Central Kitchen, I have no complaints. I really don't. That's good. I've given these more longer reviews than I thought I would. I'll just do the next three real quick. Archie Army of Darkness. It looks like an Archie comic, but it has the attitude of Ash, and I would say mostly the more funny version from Army of Darkness than the mix of horror and comedy from Evil Dead 2. But it fits surprisingly well. The Deadites feel very authentic. Dilton Doily goes up against one and he's like, "Are you going to eat my brains?" He's like, "No, I'm going to swallow your soul." And then Ash blows it up all over Dilton. It's fun. It's fun. I will finish reading this mini series because I enjoy it. I wouldn't have thought these two characters would work together necessarily. Works pretty darn well. It's a quick read, but the characters feel very authentic. It's got good dialogue, honestly. It really does. Yeah. This was one that I was surprised how much I liked, because I like Usagi Yojimbo by Stan Sakai. But I was like, am I going to enjoy, it's not quite modern day, but, a 1980s update on the idea of Usagi written and drawn by other people? That's a pretty big question mark. That's a pretty big question mark. I loved it. First of all, how cool is this, folks? So it would be too cliche to put it in Tokyo, right? It's in Osaka. And if you've been there, I think it's my favorite city in the country, for what it's worth. They are in Osaka, and there's this famous radio tower called Tsutenkaku. Tsutenkaku. Looks really pretty at night. The area just under it is like full of like vintage video game places. So like in this era, they would be like current modern video game stuff. But if you go now, it has stuff from like the 80s and 90s. Little tiny arcades with like really retro machines, and a lot of good restaurants. Oh, so many good restaurants. Small, great places. It's fun. It takes sort of the idea of Usagi. He's not a samurai, but he's a fighter that helps out like the town against sort of like the local crime bosses and stuff, and looks out for a little weaker rabbit. I will say, like, I loved the art in this. It's impressionistic on one level. It's very realistic in another. I think watercolor in comics tends to look really, really good. I can think of a lot of examples of like watercolor type stuff that looks really, really nice. It's fun to see 1980s Japan and how the Usagi idea would work in a more modern day setting. It works surprisingly well because Usagi Yojimbo, if you haven't read it, is a Ronin. You know, he travels the countryside, and it's more of an excuse to tell versions of historical battles or legends with supernatural creatures and such. And this kind of tells a story of a similar type of hero where he doesn't like necessarily have a master, but he's got like a code of honor and stuff like that. And it's telling us a little bit more about the culture of the time, the city, the food, the cars. In this, he's being hired by a government official to steal from Osaka Castle the Kitsugi. Wait, that's not how it's pronounced. Kintsugi spear. Whoops, I'm not showing it. Kintsugi. If you don't know, I love Kintsugi. If Chrissy hadn't gotten sick in her last trip, our trip to Japan just over a year ago, we were planning on taking a class in Kintsugi. Just this beautiful Japanese art. Suppose you broke a vase or something that you really loved, right? Or a bowl or something like that. Rather than like throw it out, or rather than try to invisibly repair it, the Japanese have this gorgeous way of fixing things where you mix together a powder, like gold powder, maybe silver or platinum, with a glue. And you very carefully put all the pieces back like a puzzle. But you don't try to hide the cracks. You try to make the cracks part of its history now and make it beautiful because it'll shine and sparkle. But it shows that it was broken and then repaired. And I just find Kintsugi like just a charming philosophy and a gorgeous result. The idea of making something broken look beautiful, but not try to hide that it's broken or was broken. I love it. Anyway, very, very entertaining. Gorgeous cover. There were a bunch of variant covers, and there's a part of me that wanted to get, like the Jim Rugg sort of Miami Vice style 1980s cover, but I just really love this sort of painted version that they've got. Yeah, it's really charming and really interesting, and you don't need to know any Usagi Yojimbo lore to jump in because it's just its own thing, just taking some of the ideas but putting it in a completely different time period. I wasn't familiar before either, Andy. I wasn't familiar either. The story is by Zach Rosenberg and Jared Cullum. The script specifically by Zach, but the art and the letters, which is also how Stan Sakai does stuff because he letters his own work. The art and the letters are by Jared Cullum. And I wasn't familiar before, but I think this watercolor-esque style, it's just gorgeous to me, and it feels very authentic. Oh, have you, Jeannie? About Kintsugi? It's beautiful, and I loved the idea of us taking a class over there in Japan to learn and take away a souvenir. And I'm sure we will at some point. Fell apart, but still. Jared Cullum is a bomb fine arts painter as well as cartoonist. It's something different, but I love it. I love it. Last one I'll talk about a little bit is just that Blood and Thunder is a blast. Benito Cereno, E.J. Sue, Kirkman overseeing a bunch of this. Look, it's sci-fi. This issue is funny and has made like the threat of people on Earth and the police. I mean, it's metaphorical because it's like the sci-fi thing with aliens and monsters, but like, God, the police on Earth are pretty horrible people, or is technically on Metro 1. But it's a blast. This has some really expressionistic characters, some really funny stuff. And I would say that EJ's best work is in like the more surreal scenes where, like, say a character's having a dream, right? Like, that's gorgeous to me. The circles and the loops and the sort of esoteric elements of it, or just the weight and scale of something like this 2-page spread with an army of troops on an alien planet. Benito tends to lean into mythology and history and conversational stuff that's funny, and that stuff's good, but I wish he'd give EJ a little bit more action and dreamlike stuff. I think that's where that excels. But I'm going to just ink a little bit. Actually, I don't know if I want to ink that down right there. What do I want to ink? And I want to talk about some other stuff. Hold on. Hold on. Hold your horses. What have I not finished? I don't know. I'll just mess around with some deep shadows on this old Vecna piece. There were a few things that are more like tangentially related to comics that I thought could be fun to talk about. Let me choose a pen here. And if it sounds like I'm really just saying everything EJ does is great, well, there's a reason I admire him so much. I love his work. Yeah, I've had a lot to talk about tonight. Haven't talked about the Oscars yet. I can a little later. Let me talk about a few things that are more like TV and movie news, but of things that have been comics. So it's sort of still related, right? First of all, hold on 2 seconds. Let me see. I'm going to turn off the ticker for a moment and just look at my notes for what I was going to do. Yeah, let me talk about King Conan for a minute. I'll put that back up. So King Conan was announced this week that a movie version is moving forward with Arnold Schwarzenegger returning to the role. He famously played him in 2 movies. We'll do our best to forget Conan the Destroyer. Pretty awful. But Conan the Barbarian, pretty entertaining. And it always set up that it would someday, get to an older Conan. There have been stories in Robert E. Howard's novels, as well as the comics, where Conan, in his later years, does become a king. Not just a barbarian anymore, but a king, a leader. And to get Arnold back at that age-appropriate role of kind of the first role that really made him famous has always been tempting. Christopher McQuarrie, who has done the last several Mission Impossible movies, is now attached to write and direct a King Conan movie. So it looks like, even though it's been discussed off and on for a long time, this is pretty close to looking like it'll happen. Now, in comics, what does that mean? Well, anytime there is a movie or a TV show announced about a comics character, speculation goes wild and people look for the back issues. And initially, what I'm seeing is people are trying to get King Conan #1, which was a Marvel comic. But speculators don't do enough research. That is going to go down fast if it hasn't already. King Conan in comics appeared before that. And that will be, first appearances are much more important as keys than just what it says as the title. So for that, there were 2 Marvel annuals where King Conan appeared before there was a King Conan comic. Specifically, you need to look at Conan the Barbarian Annual #2. Now that's just a couple panels, but that is the first appearance on page of Conan as a king one day. Okay. That happened in Conan the Barbarian Annual #2 by Marvel. Second, which will probably be a little more popular, is the first full story of Conan as King Conan. And that was in Giant Size Conan #1. And now that I'm thinking of it, folks, that may have had a cover. That may have been the one with the cover by Jack Kirby that then they had like somebody like Ramita draw over. I can't quite remember if that's accurate. I'll have to look at the image. But I do remember that Giant Size Conan is the first full comic book story of King Conan. So that will probably be the one that will become most popular. He is getting up there, but he's also taking care of himself. I think he could still pull it off. Yeah, they did have Jason Momoa as for one Conan movie, but I don't think it did that well. Anyway, Conan's cool. Conan's cool. People think of him as like a big dummy, but he's not. He's always been cunning and can be a leader. In his younger years, he has very little interest in that, but finally, when he gets older, he like seizes the throne and he becomes a leader with new responsibilities. And it's kind of cool that this character goes through different eras. You know, he's, a thief, he's a barbarian. He's had many different sort of jobs and careers, but it's kind of cool that he one day is destined to become king. Some really good stories of him having to now like watch out for his people, that there's like a responsibility there. I like it. So yeah, if you're interested in getting on the comic early, if the movie comes out, that's what I would expect to be the hot book to trade, would be Conan the Barbarian Annual 2 and Giant Size Conan #1. Okay. I did know that Oliver Stone wrote that first one. Yeah. Second thing I'll mention is what? Let me think for a second. Which order I want to do this in, because there was a bunch of sort of like TV type news and movie news. Giant Size Conan has the Gil Kane cover. Thank you for the correction. Then I'm thinking of something else when I was talking about Jack Kirby coming back. Conan the Barbarian equals S tier. Conan the Destroyer equals toilet tier. Yeah, in like just 2 years, it's stunning how bad that goes. And some people thought that it was a trilogy, since Arnold Schwarzenegger was also in the Red Sonja movie, and they based the Red Sonja off of the version from the comics. But no, he plays a different barbarian in Red Sonja. Confusingly, he does not play Conan. Weird, very weird. Where was I? Sorry. If you love Conan, you'll love Primal. Well, I like Gendy Tartakovsky's work, but yeah, I haven't seen any of Primal yet, so I should get to that at some point. I see a bunch of people do like that. I'm going to end the banner, I think, because from here, I'm just like, you've seen where we're going, and I won't be talking about any of these for a super long time. So a couple weeks ago, we heard that Paramount was very confusingly hiring 2 different people to write a G.I. Joe movie script. One of them was going to be, what's his name? I'm going to talk about Max Landis, because he was one of the 2 that was hired. And the other one has done a million funny shows on HBO, like Vice Principals and Down and Out, and Righteous Gemstones. Danny McBride. Jesus. Look, I don't necessarily have a lot of faith in Danny McBride writing a good G.I. Joe, because I did not love what he did with Halloween ultimately, but I really didn't like the idea of Max Landis touching it, because Max Landis is the worst. Well, fortunately, Paramount announced this week that they passed on his take on G.I. Joe. So thank God for that, honestly, because he's a horrible person, and he has not written anything good other than arguably that movie Chronicle, which I still think might have just been a happy accident because that director, Josh Trank, only directed one other movie, Fantastic Four movie that just bombed, and he's done nothing else. So he might have just lucked out. Thank you. Have I watched One Piece season 2? No, Chrissy and I are sort of slowly watching the anime, and then once we get caught up, we thought then we'd switch over and see the live action take instead of like getting ahead. We wanted to watch the anime version first. So anyway, and I guess like Max Landis, like his version was going to be, what if Cobra had already won and G.I. Joe was like almost like this like myth or something. And I'm like, yeah, I think Jerry Conway might have written that back in the animated series because G.I. Joe went to a parallel world once where Cobra had won. And I think that was co-written or written by Jerry Conway, the comic book writer. So it had been done before. Anyway, yeah. Now, I know that Max Landis has done some other stuff, but he's just really problematic at best. So, yeah. Oh, and Hulu announced that they have passed on the Buffy the Vampire continuation, we'll call it. They filmed a pilot. They brought back Sarah Michelle Gellar, and I want to say they might have brought back Allison Hannigan as well. It was overseen, directed, I should say, by Chloe Zhao, who comics-wise did the Eternals movie, but really great director, great visual sense. They said that it just wasn't what they wanted, that they might still do a Buffy TV show, but it's not going to be this one. And Sarah Michelle Gellar like posted something saying like, hey, you know, it's not going to happen right now, but I'm kind of okay with that because I really do like Buffy quite a bit. It's not always perfect, but it is a show that I like a lot. And if they're going to bring it back, I do want it to be really good because they've got a lot to lose. Buffy already has some problems with like the people that made it and were on it to a degree. I still like the show because I like it, but you got to be careful. I'd be very curious to see this pilot, but I guess it's not going to happen. No, I didn't see this, but they found some more lost episodes of Doctor Who. That's awesome. If you folks don't know, you know, it started in the 60s, and the BBC used to have this. They didn't know anything about archives or that people would be watching shows on video or streaming, like, or that Doctor Who would last this long. The BBC used to just tape over master tapes. They just use the tapes again. So a lot of Doctor Who episodes from the end of the first Doctor and most of the second Doctor have been lost to time. Every once in a while, they find a duplicate tape if like the BBC had maybe sold it to a foreign market or a collector had it. It's rare, but every once in a while they find these lost episodes, which are very exciting and privileged to come across. So that's really amazing. Joey McKay, let me star your thing. I'm going to acknowledge your super chat in a minute because I've got some stuff to say about it. Sarah Michelle Gellar said that it was one exec that nixed the show. Oh, one. He had never even seen the original movie or series and would remind everyone that during meetings. I mean, it should attract a new audience, but be a little familiar with what you're saying yes or no to. That's right. Randy, you probably took the picture. I've got a picture with Joss Whedon back when he was just considered the coolest thing in town. But Randy, you probably took that picture of us. That's so funny. That goes back in time, a long time. That was like in the 90s. Let me acknowledge this real quick. Thoughts on, he's talking Grant Morrison, tearing apart Lanterns. Personally, I don't think Lindelof should be allowed near the DCEU after that Watchmen TV show. I haven't watched it, but I know a lot of people said that they liked the Watchmen show, and I think it did well. So I sort of understand business-wise why they would allow Damon Lindelof to work on Lanterns. Also, and I'm not totally defending Lindelof because he's not my favorite writer, just to be clear, personally. But I think he was joking on a show. He said like, yeah, we thought that Green Lanterns sounded dumb, so we called it Lanterns. Said something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Grant Morrison seems to have taken that very literally, but I'm pretty sure it was just meant to be a joke. That said, Grant goes into an essay talking about how Green Lantern is much more evocative and interesting as a title. I paused to think about it, and I was like, yeah, Green Lantern legit does sound way more interesting than just lanterns. It does legit sound more interesting. Green Lantern. That sounds like something, and something uncommon as compared to just lanterns. What does that mean? So that was a good argument by Grant Morrison. And yeah, I don't love most of what I love Grant Morrison. I don't love most of what Damon Lindelof has written. Lost ultimately did not really work that well for me. I thought it ended pretty badly. So I've never gone back to it. I liked how it started, but I did not care for how it ended. I thought that his work on the whatever that Alien movie was pretty darn bad. But I know a lot of people like The Leftovers, and a lot of people seem to say that like The Watchmen was interesting. I don't know. I'm not as down on Lanterns yet. I think that the casting is pretty cool, and I'm gonna just cautiously wait and see what they do. I'm gonna cautiously wait and see what they do. The other thing, like now that I'm talking about Buffy, who would have expected Joss Whedon to be in the news tangentially twice this same week? But he is, because the other show he created, Firefly, the entire living cast, one member has passed away, Ron Glass, but the entire living cast got together at Washington, D.C.'s AwesomeCon this week, and Nathan Fillion announced that Firefly is coming back. Specifically, it will come back as an animated series with all of the cast voicing their characters, and it's going to be set between when the show ended and the movie that jumped forward several years that sort of wrapped it all up. So, you know, to anyone that's a fan of that, I thought Firefly was decent. I kind of liked the movie more than the show, actually. But to anyone that liked that, I think that that's probably pretty good news, right? I mean, they're too old, and it would be like, you can't really bring it back because like some of the characters are dead and one of the actors is dead. But I think an animated show is a pretty good way to do it. Fillion says that he, you know, got the blessings of all the right holders and everything. He's obviously gathered the entire cast back together. And yeah, so if you like Firefly, I would have to imagine that's pretty good news. I can't claim to be the world's biggest Firefly fan. So to me, I was like, oh, interesting. Good for them. More than anything else. I don't have huge, coming back as an animated show. They got the rights. They got the okay from everyone. Fillion is basically the one that gathered the whole cast together. Technically, so like he got the whole cast back together, but Adam Baldwin was not on the panel. He said some pretty like bigoted stuff in the past, but he is one of the characters, and I think that like most people would probably be okay with him being just the voice. But he was not on the panel. But he is doing back and continuing his role. And I guess they'll just have to get a new voice actor to play the Reverend guy that was on the show, as played by Ron Glass. Ron Glass was a really cool actor, a lot of good shows, but has passed away since that show aired. And to be fair, if they were continuing like after the movie, well, I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but two of the characters died. Two of the main characters died in the movie. It only lasted, just to be clear, folks, like half a season, something along the lines of 13 episodes, maybe 11, somewhere in that vicinity. And somehow it miraculously got a movie to wrap it all up. So I would have always said that those fans are pretty darn lucky, all things considered. You know, yeah, it got canceled by the network, but you got closure. You got all sorts of comic version continuations. I feel like if you're a fan of the material, you're fairly lucky. There's plenty of cool shows and stuff like, we'll say, Carnival that, never really got a continuation or a completion or anything like that. Plenty of stuff. So some lucky people there. Was there anything else? I think that was all of the, You use the Pigma brush set. Sometimes that's what I've got right now. I use a lot of different brush pens, but I do like brush pens. I enjoy this one by Zig Pens. But there's some other ones that I use too here and there. I like the Fudonosuke by Tombow. I just like brush pens. I don't know. I really like them. Dollhouse was interesting, but I always thought it had a bit of a problematic, weird idea of like sort of putting a personality onto a living person and sublimating who they were. I didn't love that. It was weird. It was an interesting technology, but I think they wrapped it up fine. Buffy, I think, has a much bigger sort of, it's about monsters and a monster hunter. And so you can always sort of find ways to like reboot or re-envision that and have it set within the same mythology, but tell new different stories with new heroes or new villains, but still have it sort of in that continuity if that's a world that you like. And it is a world that I like. I like Buffy a lot. I have things I could criticize and complain about, but that's not really the show for now. No, because like I say, I just wasn't the biggest fan of Firefly in the world. It's good. I just wasn't super into it. So no, I've never followed any of the Firefly comics. Remember when Paul Dini created a TV show called Tower Prep? No, don't remember that one at all. I like Carnival a lot. Two great seasons. I think that's a really cool show. It's still worth watching. For a while, I thought that Deadwood would sort of be one of those shows for me. I love Deadwood, and I didn't think that would ever really get a finale either. But years and years later, they did get a finale. So, yeah. That was kind of cool. What else was up? I saw a movie this week with a friend of mine, Undertone. It's a horror movie, but it's all in one small house, dealing with a woman taking care of her mother who's in hospice. She's like, gonna die any day now. And at night, while she's living at her house, she does a podcast about weird supernatural stories. She's the skeptic, and like her friend is like the believer. And the stuff that they talk about seems to mirror what might be happening at her house. Some weird stuff happens. So it's really mostly in your mind exactly what's going on. Maybe something close to the first Paranormal Activity in terms of you're not really seeing like a crazy killer monster with all sorts of bloody stuff, but it's happening in your mind and you're looking like closely at the shadows, and it was pretty scary. I liked it okay. Hey, it's Maud, partner of the great Tyler Crook. The inability for Dollhouse characters to give informed consent was a huge problem for that show. Yeah, it felt like that was something that they should have addressed like real early on to make it like that the characters were somehow going to, like that they were aware and that they were fighting back and they were going to take control and maybe use the ability to download skills or memories, but like, because like the technology was there, and I was like, well, if they could control getting certain bits of information or knowledge and go on missions, that would be really cool. But it never quite got there. It was like they just got like the company that was running that place would just put personalities over these poor people, and I just didn't get what it was going for. I'm not going to do that, no. But I will do my perfect Meryl Streep impression. So I think the last thing I'm going to talk about is I put out a new Comic Tropes episode. And oh my God, did it bomb. I mean, it just cratered. There's no getting around it. Like the views for it are pathetic. They really are. Like to a degree that I'm like, I can't be offended or anything. because I don't think it's like any fault of mine. It just clearly YouTube did not want to share it based on however an algorithm works. And it just is nothing. And, I, every once in a while, instead of like doing a deep dive analysis, I love finding a goofy, weird golden age comic and just using it as a platform to make jokes. Is it that insightful? No, probably not. Is it fun for me? Yeah. And I don't think I can offend anyone because these people have been dead for a long time. And I don't even dislike it. It's just that it's goofy and it's like throw anything at the wall and see what sticks. I like looking at weird golden age stuff. So I found some weird ones. I was going to look at some monster comics and I was pretty happy with what I created. Honestly, I thought it was pretty funny. And the people that have watched it have responded very well. But how many people saw it? Not that many. Not that many at all. It just absolutely tanked. So I am very rapidly working on getting another episode up, because the one thing the algorithm will really penalize you on is if you have bad views and then you take a while to put out your next episode, that's going to do bad too. So I got to get something out. That was only I always do an A/B test with like 3 different titles and 3 different thumbnails. So only one had Satan and it was Lady Satan in the title. I don't think that would be a problem. No, I think most people didn't get a notification, just to be clear. I think hardly anybody got a notification. I still think it was funny. I was just making jokes, whatever. Like I say, people that saw it seemed to like it. I'm not getting like criticisms like this was pretty bad or this was not funny. I didn't get anything like that. People seem to like it. So I'm happy about that. I'm really not that offended. Not every video is going to do well. It just isn't. So I'm like, okay, to a degree you play the game. As in, if something hasn't done well lately, you decide to do something that is likely to do better. Now, it still has to interest me, but I always have like about, 5 or 6 ideas more or less ready to go. So I was like, I'm going to do something about a character people, care about generally. I'm going to do a Wolverine episode. So I'm working on one that very specifically looks at his 2001, I think it was 2001, miniseries Origin, where they decided to finally give Wolverine a definitive origin, which was pretty controversial at the time. And I've got sort of a nuanced take on it, because at first I really didn't like it, to be honest. But in retrospect, I think that there's a lot of good reasons for doing why they did it. And while I may not love it, I also don't hate it. I think that there were some good ideas within it and the execution was decent. So but I'll talk about the controversy. I'll talk about Wolverine's history of getting to that point, and I'll talk about what, Paul Jenkins and Adam Kubert. I think it was Adam Kubert. I got to double check. Maybe it was Andy Kubert. I get that confused all the time. Yeah, at the time, I didn't care for it. I thought that I was going to do an episode where I was like, this was garbage, big idea. And then I looked at it and I go, you know what? My opinion has actually changed a little. In some ways, I appreciate what they've done. I haven't thought about that one lately, Randy, but at some point I would enjoy doing a look at just very specifically how Travis Charest evolved from, essentially a Jim Lee clone into doing something much more detailed and grounded than what he'd done previously and what most people were doing at the time. I think that that's very interesting. In doing research, he's a very mysterious creator. He hasn't done lots of interviews or appearances and stuff like that. And there's weird rumors that like he married into money and so he doesn't need to work, but he does still post quite a bit to social media with some really nice drawings. So yeah, there's some stuff to talk about. Origin was the miniseries that gave away his origin. Then in 2009, there was the movie Wolverine Origins, which everyone's going to be like, that was pretty bad. And then in 2011, I want to say, there was a new ongoing created called Wolverine Origins, plural, that also like explored some of his early stuff. But yeah, that's probably why the latest episode bombed. Anyway, just letting you know, hard at work on that. If you are into it, for Friday the 13th, Jim and Jamie and I put out a new trash movie bonanza on this channel about the next Friday the 13th movie. We're going to go chronologically now every Friday the 13th. There may be even more frequently than that, but certainly when we can for Friday the 13th. So we did part 1 last Friday the 13th, and now we did part 2. There is another Friday the 13th. I want to say October this year. We get 3. So we'll do part 3 for that. Third Friday the 13th of the year, we'll do part 3. And we, just to be clear, we'll do other movies too, but we just enjoy doing Friday the 13th on a Friday the 13th. So yeah, that's I would recommend that. I think we have a pretty funny, entertaining episode with jokes and a summary and a look behind the scenes at like how it was made, which are funny. But it's not comics, so I know it's not for everybody. So Larry Hama doing Implanted Memory wasn't enough for Joe Quesada. Just to be clear, it wasn't Joe Quesada at the time making calls. It was Bill Jemas. Bill Jemas made that call. Bill Jemas. So I've got stuff to say about him. I'm not a big fan of Jemas. I think he made a lot of weird choices during his era and made one of the worst comics ever himself, Marvel. It's a comic. Marvel is so bad, I don't think I can do an episode just breaking down how bad it was. I don't think it would be funny. I think it would be depressing to talk about. It is just an abysmal comic. Just really, really stupid on tons of levels. About the only thing you could say that's good about it is like that it has good art. You don't want to pick on the artist for what it is. But it is a terrible comic. If you want to see somebody review it, the closest thing I can think of would just be like, get somebody like Linkara that just sort of, pokes fun and jokes about any kind of a comic, but I couldn't do it. Marvel is just god awful. Like one of the worst things I've ever read. Up there with like another book that is so bad that I don't feel I can even like really do a review or analysis would be Holy Terror. I could talk about Frank Miller again. In fact, I think I'd like to really talk about Frank Miller from the 80s, Frank Miller from the 90s. There's a lot that I could say about him, but Holy Terror is just so bad that aside from giving out 1 or 2 points of why it's so bad, I'd be done. Maybe as a short, but I could not. Comic Pop did an episode on that. More power to him. I don't think I could. I've considered it. There are some really... Did Comic Pop also do Marvel? There's sometimes something is just so abysmal that I'm like, well, that means there's not a whole lot to review. You just say, I didn't like it for reasons X, Y, and Z. And you're kind of done. Right? And sometimes if it's really bad, not entertaining bad, just bad, it's hard to make jokes. From me, it was like people get on, say, Joe Quesada for something like, One More Day or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but he did a lot of good comics for Marvel too. He brought them back from bankruptcy. Bill Jemas, not my favorite era. Not my favorite era at all. Have I thought about doing shorts for your book of the week recommendations? No, I kind of like the idea. I don't know if I've got quite enough bandwidth to add that to my work plate, but I like the idea of it. I've sort of given up on the idea of the channel exploding in popularity at this point, going a little more viral and getting to a point where I'm like, I can hire an editor, I can hire, a marketing person. But if I could, that's the kind of stuff I'd do, is I'd be like, let's make a short about what you just said. Like that, just take something out of this, we'll re-edit it and like condense it and make it like cool. Yeah, I probably will do something about it soon. At least I think so, because And I would say it would be a little bit less about the mask itself and a little bit more about Doug Monkey, because he's an artist that I really, really like. And yeah, I've got stuff to say about Doug and how much I like Doug's work. Wow, I didn't realize that I've already been going for over 3 hours. Now, admittedly, there was like about a 3 or 4 minute break in the middle where I wasn't broadcasting, but that's interesting. Okay, I'm going to have to wrap it up then so that I can have some dinner, because I do work pretty early tomorrow. Unfortunately, I like my coworkers, but I wish I could have a break. The only time I can have a break, in my opinion, is when I take a trip. But otherwise, I feel like I have to do at least some work. Anyway, I've got a script for my Wolverine episode, so I'm just going to fine tune that, record it, edit it. So it's going to take a little while longer, but that's next. Doug Monkey is one that I'd really like to do sometime soon. So is Batman Year One, especially like David Mazzucchelli, and so is the crazy art in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and the designs and the poses. So those are some of the ones that are like highest in my current catalog of ideas, but we'll see. Hey Chris, I always catch your show late. Love your show. Well, thank you so much for the support. Somebody help me. What is this unit of currency? I've seen you here before, Tatum, and I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the super chat, but I'm not. Is that like what is that, like won, or is that like what Singapore uses or something? What is that unit of currency? So I really want to know, because I'm just such a nerd for geography and stuff like that. Somebody help me out. What currency is this? Oh, Indian rupee. Indian rupee. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And thank you for telling me. It was bothering me. No, not Dark Knight Strikes Again, I don't think. But anyway. Folks, I had a great time tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sticking with me, even though the stream temporarily wasn't really broadcasting anything. That really means a lot to me. But I had a great time this week. I hope you had a good time. I will see you again on next Monday. What else do I need to mention? I don't think I need to mention anything else that I've got to plug. But thank you very much. You guys are the best. Take care. Oh, I'll acknowledge this. Thanks for the stream. Thank you, Dr. Shubil. That means a lot to me. It really does. I really do like it. I will be doing something for Supergirl before that comes out. I specifically would like to talk about Mateus Lopez's coloring in it. Coloring. That's what I'm thinking of. You guys aren't going to let me leave. What, do you like this show or something? Tell you what, you get a double salute. Keep reading comics. Bye, everybody.